No, ladies and gentlemen, you're not seeing things because a couple of hours ago you heard from me speaking with pro wrestling star from NOCW and the IMF, the real deal, Anthony Steele. But we're not talking pro wrestling. We're talking all things related here to the world of sports. Well, who knows? Maybe a wrestler will jump in. Everybody seems to have somebody come in here on Sportswire Radio. But we're going to talk all the latest happenings here in the world of sports, especially some Major League Baseball, some NBA, what's left, maybe some NHL if you stayed up. But I got three of my guys here from Sportswire Radio. One of them here is Chris Pizzea of the Liftoff Jets. Just celebrated their 100th show, now up to 101 shows. He's also with the Talking Rivals. They're up to 97 shows now, closing in on 98. We've got Rob Maraska here, who's got an announcement for a contest here in a few minutes, and Justin Gianelli, who I think is a Yankees fan based on his StreamYard name here. Actually, I'm only goofing. He's the host of the Baseball Banter Show, and he's obviously a happy Mets fan. And gentlemen, how you doing tonight on a Friday?
Not bad, thanks.
I might have lost my voice on that Lindor hit.
Well, I tell you what, you go find out when you go sit in my chair every day when we do these. You'll test when the voice really gets lost because I do these sometimes 2 and 3 times, but it's not about me. It's about right now both teams. I'll get to both teams in a second. Yankees playing really well. I got a lot of notes on the Yankees. Mets, maybe they're starting to turn the corner here. First winning streak here in about a month, but Rob Maraska, you posted it on Twitter, and I want to go right for the jugular. And you had a contest here, and if I'm seeing things here, a 1987 Darryl Strawberry Topps card. What is so special about this, and what is it about this contest as to why people listening and watching on Sportswire Radio should know about it?
Well, apparently they're into it because I'm getting a lot of requests. So, yeah, the strawberry cards included, and then I'm going to have some mystery cards also that I'm not going to tell them. They're just going to, when they receive the strawberry card, they're going to get the mystery cards with it.
So it's not going to be like a Darren Ruff Mets card, though, because Met fans are going to kill you if it's a Darren Ruff card you're including. Or an Aaron Hicks Yankees card, although Hicks has been a little better lately, but if you include those cards, you're going to get killed, you know.
But it's going to be luck of the draw. What I'm doing is I'm not going to see which cards are going to get pulled, so they're going to get what they're going to get. It could be anyone. It could be.
So who's pulling the cards? That's what I want. I don't even want to know who gets the card and who's pulling these cards if you can't see it. Because I know I'm not in the contest because I purposely want somebody to win here. So I mean, who's pulling these cards then?
I got a secret card puller that's going to do it. But I have a bunch of good cards, and so far I'm getting a good response as usual. People love getting these cards. So
sure.
It's pretty good. So you never know who you're
going to get. Like I said, a Darren Ruff or a Daniel Vogelback or an Aaron Hicks or a Josh Donaldson.
It could be a Keith Hernandez. It could be a Rusty Staub. You never know. It could be someone old.
A Rusty Staub might be worth something. That might still be worth something.
It could be Mr. Met, a Mr. Met card. You never know.
Well, do they actually have a Mr. Met card out there?
Last year, Topps had all. They had like the Philly Fanatic, Mr. and Mrs. Met, you know, San Diego Chicken and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, the San Diego Chicken. That's still a thing. Yeah, you know what? I mean, I should probably have gotten the last few top sets, but unfortunately, I have like almost zero room at this point. But I've always kind of wanted to get the last couple of sets. But thank you for telling us that, and I want to thank everybody here for tuning in. But I guess let's talk about the Mets first, because both Yankees and Mets are playing really well right now. I've got notes on both. But let me go to Justin Gianelli first, because I don't know how much of a voice he's going to have, since he said he's trying to keep his voice here. But, I mean, this Mets team, you know, a couple days ago, you're watching the game Tuesday, you're listening to it like I was on the way home, and Verlander didn't look too good. This team looked lifeless. They're playing a Rays team at first place, and all of a sudden here, we start to see the guys come up, start to deliver for us, especially the likes of Francisco Alvarez, Mark Vientos we see here to keep things alive here tonight. No, by the way, in between Pete Alonso. And I guess I'll ask something here for the first time in maybe a month. Do the Mets now look like they're off life support and they have a little bit of momentum here, Justin Gianelli?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the last 3 nights have been absolutely magical. I mean, and even on Tuesday night they did hit a few home runs, and
it got about 8-5.
It resulted in a comeback. Alonso homered, Beatty homered on Tuesday night, and ultimately they did lose 8-5 to the Rays, but they were coming off a month where they played pretty lifeless baseball against some bad baseball teams.
We spoke about it last week. The Tigers, the Rockies, the Reds, the Nationals.
Exactly. The Mets went through would seem to be a softer part of their schedule, and they played horrible baseball. And you think about it, they haven't won a series since the Dodgers series back in late April when they were starting 7-1 on the West Coast trip, and we were lauding them for being 14-7. And all of a sudden, you get Wednesday nights back and forth. And it was crazy because the Met bullpen kept giving it back and giving it back and giving it back. But, as I'm not going to blame the bullpen as much as I'm going to credit the Rays, because the Rays have a great lineup and they're a great baseball team. So, they kept on fighting and fighting and fighting until Pete hit the walk-off.
Sure.
And maybe now that it's a 3-game winning streak, maybe things have turned. We're going to see Scherzer and Verlander pitch the next 2 games. My guess is both will be on Sunday, by the way, because the weather looks absolutely.
Yeah, I know the weather does not look good tomorrow at all.
So I would doubt they play tomorrow, but you'll have Scherzer and Verlander the doubleheader Sunday. You had Tyler McGill pitch extremely well yesterday in the series finale against the Rays. That game yesterday was a well-pitched game. And then you had Kodai Senga striking out 12 Rays over 6 innings. He's starting to show a pulse on the mound. And really, if the Mets, and I know tonight wasn't great from Carlos Carrasco, and I know he's been bad this year.
Carlos Carrasco, it was like 2021 Carlos Carrasco. He has a bad inning.
I'll give him a slight pass for tonight because he's just come back from injury. He did end up giving the team 5 innings, which, in retrospect does help. But maybe the rotation is starting to put things together, and we'll see what Scherzer and Verlander can do this weekend, and hopefully Senga and McGill build off of what they've been doing, and go on a winning streak and have a winning homestand, and all they got to do is win one of the next 2 to have a winning homestand, and that's exactly how you're going to start pointing things in the right direction.
I'm certainly back at 500, and I was speaking with the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, who I think our first comment here is waiting for, because he wants to hear from him when it comes to the NBA. That is my guest a little while ago. Mr. Anthony Steele is going to be in the ring tomorrow night for the NOCW, and also for our friends over at the IMF. And when the Brute Force comes on, I'm sure that's what Mr. Steele is waiting for. But I was speaking with the Brute Force, and we were speaking about this, and this Mets team, and everybody's in it really, just because everybody's kind of either around 500 or just below 500. Look at the Padres. Padres have been a little bit of a disappointment. Cardinals, up until recently, we spoke about. I mean, you look at Milwaukee and Pittsburgh have come down to earth considerably. We got the Cubs and Marlins probably playing a little bit above water. Phillies, I was speaking with somebody today, are a little bit of a disappointment as well. And it's really just the Braves and the Dodgers, and everybody else has kind of played right around the same record. So some fair points here. We'll see if the Mets can at least split these next 2 games. And I agree with you, Justin. Hopefully the Mets don't attempt Rob Morosky what the Nationals tried to do last week. And speaking about bizarre, you're watching the game Saturday, and it's, I don't get it with baseball this season. I don't get, baseball's trying to speed games up. They're trying to make everything easier for people to watch. Then they couldn't figure out it wasn't going to stop raining in Washington. And then 3 hours later, the field is in poor condition. We can't play. So what was the point of making people sit there? But let's hopefully hope that Mr. Cohn has learned from his mistakes earlier in the year when it comes to certain games being played and not being played. And we'll see maybe if the Mets play 2 on Sunday. But Rob Morosky, Mets do get a much-needed win, second win of the last 3 that was kind of in this fashion. Did they turn the corner here? Is it a sign of things to come? Or what do you make of where this Mets team is right now?
It's a good start. That's what I think. I mean, they're starting to look they're coming alive. They're starting to look a little like the team from last year where they're never out of it. And, to come back against the Rays and to take that series, that was big because, I mean, the Rays are just an excellent team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. The Rays we spoke about, maybe the Mets caught them at the right time because now the Braves going into today have lost 7 of their last 12, 4 of 6. So maybe we got lucky.
Yeah, and I think the kids coming in have injected like something to this team now. It's excitement now. You want to see these young guys do well, and they're starting to come through. Alvarez, Vientos, Beatty. They're starting to hit. They're starting to come through, and you know what? Vogelbach better watch his back because
I'll tell you what, Vogelbach was up there, and it was the moment he had where Escobar is another guy that's certainly been tenuous at best in his tenure as a Met of late. I'm sure Brad Weiss will talk about him in a few minutes, and he gets this opportunity there, runner on second, could have went to third, and Vogelbach certainly tested Mets fans' endurance there with that strikeout.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to be, you see him come up and you're like, you just cringe. You don't want him to come up. And tonight he could have made a statement and he did nothing. So I like seeing the kids getting a chance. It's bringing back the excitement. Finally, it gives the Met fans something to cheer about again this year. And taking 2 out of 3 from the Rays is a great start.
Absolutely, no question about that. And I want to come over to speaking of excitement because it's not just the Mets right now in this town that have excitement, Chris Pizet. It's the New York Yankees. And I'm going to give you a stat here because I'm prepared here to talk baseball, which is obviously I think the last couple of weeks you've seen in my performance. And the New York Yankees are 9-3 since Aaron Judge has come back. Aaron Judge has propelled the Yankees. Yankees going to today have 33 home runs their last 17 games. They're 8-3 with him fully in the lineup these last 11 games. And I think here for them turning the corner here against the Rays, getting the split, 3 of 4 in Toronto, then another big win here tonight against Cincinnati. And I'm starting to feel like that the Yankees are also turning the corner. And I think the Yankees are right where they want to be. And what a week of difference makes. And I think this team is turning the corner here. And I think Aaron Judge is, the biggest reason why. Tell me your thoughts on all that and anything else you want to add and what I'm missing.
Totally agree with you. Definitely turning the corner. They're getting healthy. Obviously, that helps, right? Getting your best player back. And he's hot when he does come back, which adds to it. But and just like with the Mets, it's like, all right, if you start off a little slow, you have a rough month or so. Listen, baseball is a lot of ups and downs. You just want to be hot at the right time, right? And Philadelphia last year was a great example of it, how bad they started and they ended up in the World Series. So both teams now are starting to, turn into what they, what everybody thought they would be at the beginning of the year, right? So I think with the Yankees, they're just going to get better because you got Stanton coming back and hopefully Rodon in, maybe in another month. Sevy's going to return Sunday, make his first start of the season. So this team is getting healthy. Canley's coming back as well in a few days. So when these guys come back, it's just going to add to this team. It's going to get better. And then, next month or so, you're going to start seeing trades happening with, not just with the Yankees, but the Mets too. That's when you're going to see some big moves being made. So by then, both teams will say, okay, this is what we need. This is what we got to go get, whether it's a bat, another pitcher, whatever. So, but I love how the team is playing right now, taking 3 out of 4 in Toronto. Was huge.
Go into today, 33 home runs in 17 games. I remember speaking with you at the beginning of the month, and we were like, this Yankees lineup is starved. They're not hitting right now. And all of a sudden, it's like they're murderers row in the month of May.
Yeah, they finally woke up.
Maybe, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Right. And you know what? And I think I said it last week with the guys. I said it with the Mets and with the Yankees. The guys that are on the team are going to bring the teams back, right? And the way the teams are going to come back is the big guys, the big bats are going to start hitting. Judge gets hot, boom, they're taking off. The Mets, you could see Alonso. Once he gets going, he can carry that team.
He's been going and going and going.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
going to carry the team.
This guy already.
Now you just need the pitching to kind of solidify itself, right? Now you just need Verlander and hopefully Scherzer could just give you good starts. If you get good starts, the Mets are going to go on a roll and maybe even catch the Braves.
Well, I have a question on the Yankees in a second, but I want to get to my very good friend Anthony Fink because I have a question for him because he says here, "What's up, fellas? Checking in from Pizza Wagon," which for those that don't know is in beautiful. Well, I can't really say it's beautiful Bay Ridge, Brooklyn anymore. It's okay Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, because Bay Ridge is not the the old time Bay Ridge. It's remnants of it. So let me be PC when I say that, and I'm not talking about demographics. Just checking in from Pizza Wagon, having a slice in Tom Bryce's honor. Now I have to ask you, Anthony Finkel, before I get to Chris here in a Yankee follow-up. What are you having? I would prefer, if I'm in Pizza Wagon, I gotta have the Sicilian, not the round. I mean, the round is very bland at Pizza Wagon. For those that don't know, it's on 86th Street and 5th Avenue. It's right on the corner of 5th Avenue and 86th Street. It's kind of like the last vestiges of left of that kind of strip there on 86th Street. So for you, Anthony Finkel, are you having a Sicilian slice or a round slice? And I'm not surprised that you've messaged me, because one of our mutual friends who's been on this show before, Stephen Patzer, who used to come through us via Mill Basin and Bensonhurst, had called me for the first time in I don't know how many years. I didn't even know he was alive still, but that's here nor there. So I'll wait for your question, Anthony Finkel. But, Chris, I want to come back to the Yankees for a second, because I got to go to the guys here in the Mets. I have a follow-up with that. But, I look at the standings now, and it's not that far-fetched that the Yankees could actually catch the Rays. Even though Rays won tonight, it's only 6.5 games back between these teams. And you look at it's a logjam right now between Toronto, Boston, Baltimore, and the Yankees. So do you feel like now where we are that the Yankees are still even very much alive in the American League East to actually catch the Rays? Because, as I pointed out, the Rays have actually come back to earth here, which we kind of spoke about would eventually happen here these last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely think so. I don't think anybody's going to run away with the East. Even in the NL East, too. I don't think anybody's going to run away with those divisions. It's going to be tight. I don't think it's going to be a 14 race like it is in the American League.
Well, in the National League Central, it might be because they're just all bad. I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's not a good thing. But like the National League East, you're probably going to have the Mets and the Braves again. The Phillies, I would assume, are going to get hot again and kind of catch up. So, but the American League East, I mean, you got every team in there that you can make an argument for the playoffs for every one of them.
It's really surprising this year.
Yeah, even Boston. So, but listen, the Rays, they had the great start. But they're going to come down to earth. They're still a good team, but they're nowhere near what they were, the first 3-4 weeks of the season.
Right.
And you guys seen it up front, too. Their bullpen is not great. No. So if you could get to the bullpen, and you're definitely going to beat them. They're not unbeatable. They're not. I don't think there's a team in the league right now that's, unbeatable, or that's, the one favorite over everybody else. So I definitely think they could catch them. If the Yankees won't, I think Baltimore could. Toronto's got.
I don't know. Toronto, I got to be honest. I watched Toronto, and I'm going to come back to them. I wasn't that impressed with them. I was listening to their manager after the game yesterday, and I don't know. I mean, I don't see it. I was very high on Toronto, and watching them up close, listening to these games on the radio on the way home these last couple of nights, back and forth with the Mets and Yankees on Sirius XM. And I mean, I don't know. This Toronto team, I feel like they're missing something. I don't know what it is.
Thursday night's game showed me so much about Toronto, more than just the Yankees, but more so for Toronto, because the Yankees in that game, they had the 3-1 lead after the 6th inning, and their bullpen was done. The Yankees, right? So they had to use Ryan Weber, Albert Abreu, and then they closed it out with Marinaccio. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, that's not ideal to shut down Toronto over 3 innings, but they did. Weber gave up 1 run in the 7th. Then the 8th inning, Abreu pitched great. And then the 9th inning, Marinaccio got the save. But that's something that Toronto should not let happen, especially at home. You had to score a couple of runs. They couldn't even get a couple of runs off of, the Yankees probably not 3 worst, but 2 out of the 3 are their worst relievers. And they couldn't get, 2 or 3 runs off of these guys. So that shows me, like you said, there is something missing there. And it's not just one player or 2 players. It's the whole.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the last couple. I don't know if it's the last couple years. And I'm going to come to the guys in a second. If it's the fact that last year they get swept at home in the short series against Seattle, the year before they missed the playoffs the last weekend of the season, even going back to the COVID year, they don't do much against Tampa in the short, whatever you want to call it, as of a postseason, and sometimes it gets into your head in sports. Maybe that's the case. I don't know.
I'm done. I'm honestly done buying into their hype.
You're one of the guys. You're like Toronto, and I thought that Toronto be good.
To me, they're the 4th best team in the division. You keep Tampa up at the top right now. I still
Yeah.
think the Rays are the best team in the division, but
Yeah, I agree that they'll still be for now. Yeah,
between the Orioles and Yankees because both teams have played great baseball. Orioles have been all.
And Baltimore beats Toronto tonight, 6-2.
We also see it first, even though he's a top prospect. We saw in the game on Thursday, Taj Bradley start for the Rays. And he's a top prospect in their system, but you could clearly see they're going to be missing Drew Rasmussen in that bullpen. They did start 2 openers in the series with Jalen Beeks and Josh Fleming in the first 2 games of the series. So realistically, how is their rotation going to shake out? Now, their offense, I think, can carry them through the season, but they're not going to really be much of a threat in the postseason. You're just going to need better starting pitching than that in the postseason.
They've done nothing really in their couple of appearances here. And
what will help is the sooner Tyler Glasnow comes back, the better that will be for Tampa. But they don't have a lot to work with in the starting rotation. I think long run, that's what's going to hurt them, and why they'll come back a little bit to earth. Although I don't know. I still think Tampa does win the division, but it'll be a race in September.
Yeah, no, it's I agree. I don't know if they're going to win the division, but it's not going to be by a lot of games for any of the teams, right? No. I think it's going to be a close race right to the end. With even Boston hanging in there, I don't know if they're going to hang in for too long because I don't think they have the pitching to do it.
Pitching is just rough.
Yeah, but Sale's been actually pitching well.
Sale has.
You know what? In the end, I really don't trust Boston's pitching. And Toronto, to me, their pitching's not great either.
No,
and their lineup has been disappointing. I've been surprised by how good Baltimore's pitching has been. Kyle Gibson has been a godsend for them, and he's been terrific at the top of their rotation. But but they're a team, and that's with what's his name, Grayson Rodriguez.
Right,
he hasn't pitched all that great just yet, but. He's another one of the Baltimore top prospects. We've talked about their farm system and how great it is, and there's a lot more in the minor leagues. So Baltimore is in the beginning of an era where the Orioles I think are going to be great for the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh
and, they're going to be a force. I can't quite see them winning the division this year, but then again, I wouldn't rule anything out at this point.
I think they may become like Tampa, that's how good their farm system is, where they're just going to produce these players and they're going to win, and the players are going to leave and then someone's going to replace them. I think they could go that way. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Oh yeah. I mean, right now you got to remember they were bad for so long. They got all these top prospects, right, in their system. But once they come up, like maybe in the next few years, they're not going to have the top prospect anymore. The number 1 or number 2 guy.
They might. They still might, as long as the men in the organization who are scouting and drafting, right. They can still develop top talent and develop the players to where they've gotten to now with their top picks, but. It's just what they've done, and this goes from the end of the Buck Showalter era to to last year when they got back over 500. It took years and years of building. Almost, I wouldn't say quite yet, but almost feels similar to the Astros plan.
Yeah,
that's
right.
We'll see if the Orioles pay off and end up paying off like the Astros.
But they have to take that next step. Now that they got back to 500. Now you got to see them get to the playoffs and and do what the Astros do.
They got to get on a run here. I mean, Houston
every season. Let's see.
Going in, and I apologize. Unfortunately, some technical difficulties do happen once in a while. It also means that I'm probably near the time of getting a new computer because the last couple of days things are slowing down. So it just, listen, you put mileage on it. I've gotten about 2 years out of this. But Houston, 7 of the last 8 years has been in the postseason, 2 World Series victories. I want to get to a couple of comments here. First, a kidding one before I get to a very good friend of ours on Sportswire. As I expected, Anthony Finkel went with the square, hopefully the corner square pizza wagon. That's kind of what they're known for. Very good friend. Haven't heard from him in a while. The local mailman of West Brighton via Westerly, the friendly confines of Westerly on the North Shore of Staten Island. Mr. Billy Mazier says, which team is worse, the Blue Jays or the Maple Leafs? Well, I guess
it's not even a debate. It's not even a debate. It's the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be freaking kidding me by firing Kyle Dubas. I mean, are you serious?
Technically, they won success. The Maple Leafs did finally win their first postseason series.
Yeah, exactly. And they have the success, and they got a good core of players. At some point, we got this goes for all sports. And maybe the GM could take a little more heat because he's the guy who picks the players. But we see these coach firings all the time. Doc Rivers just got fired. Monty Williams of the Suns just got fired.
It was funny. The Doc Rivers one, it was almost like the guys after the Boston-Philadelphia game, they were kind of talking. It was the NBA TV post game, and then the TNT guys, obviously Ernie, Charles, and Shaq and Kenny the Jet Smith. And it was almost like you could tell they were almost like saying, well, I guess he's going to get fired now. It was almost like predetermined.
Yeah,
it was like wrestling almost.
It's become more... It's become so much more of a "what have you done for me lately," job than it ever has been. And even the turnover, even in the NHL, with Gerard Gallant getting fired after 2 years.
Gerard Gallant seems to be like the modern day version of Mike.
And honestly, with the Maple Leafs, who knows now if Sheldon Keefe is safe as head coach? Because now you just fired the GM. The GM's probably going to want to bring in his new head coach. He's got 4 massive contracts. This new GM's got
and the Capitals in the NHL. Billy Mazier's a Capitals fan. They've changed coaches now. This will be their 4th coach since Trotz back in 2018. So
which is amazing. But the difference is the Capitals haven't really been that great over the last couple of years. Toronto has become a perennial playoff team with a lot of expectations. Which I understand that eventually, yes, it's supposed to be Stanley Cup or bust for that roster. But I think in a tough Eastern Conference, I find it so hard to just fire the GM.
Well, I mean, it's tough, but I think the main point of that is we're talking here on Sportswire Radio with Rob Maraska, Chris Pizzet, and Justin Gianelli, is that nobody's safe in sports. There's very few Bill Belichick's, Greg Popovich's. I mean, Aaron Boone, I hate to say it for some of the Yankee fans, has got one of the longer tenured records now in sports. Eric Spoelstra with the Heat, watching what he's done. I mean, there's very few of that. Used to be a time, you'd have managers, coaches for 10, 12, 13 years regularly. Now, I mean, you can count really who's been managing for as long as they've been in the 4 major sports. I think that's kind of the moral. So even last week we were talking about Buck Showalter, and well, there was people on Twitter that were basically going after Buck Showalter, and even during the week here. And Bill Mazier's also got a comment here about the Orioles. The Orioles need to spend money for a quality veteran to get them to the playoffs. I mean, there is a point to be made that if a team like Baltimore, a young team, has kind of been knocking on the door, that maybe they should make a move at least at the deadline because they're probably going to make the postseason. It probably helps morale, maybe draw some fans to the ballpark. Instead of them giving up somebody like a Mancini last year, maybe they make a move this year. And, any of you guys disagree with that or have a different thought on that?
That makes a lot of sense. Definitely. Okay. I agree with that.
All right. Mm-hmm. And Billy Mazier, by the way, noted huge Washington Capitals fan. I know this because when I was an Islanders season ticket holder, he was actually there at the Capitals Islanders games in Brooklyn. So that I know very well. He says here, Gallant should get the Washington job. He'll fix Kuznetsov. He'll get Washington back in the right direction. Yeah, I mean, Gallant does have a track record, but it's a short track record. It's a short window.
Listen, the way coaches are recycled in the NHL, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, he's going to get a job. Listen, his resume's got a conference final, a Stanley Cup final, a coach of the year. He's got, 4 100-point seasons under his belt?
We'll even think about this for a second. Peter DeBoer, 7-0 in Game 7s, yet he's on like his 5th or 6th different team. Coaching the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final. And he's facing his former team, the Golden Knights. So, who let him go? Another team that let Gerard Gallant go.
Well,
But
it's the Gerard Gallant sweepstakes. I don't know. The
but
teams that don't like.
and who does Vegas hire? They get a recycled head coach. They hire Bruce Cassidy, the former Bruins head
Oh,
coach.
you know what it is? We've had this talk before on the station. We've spoken about this in baseball for the baseball guys here with the managers. As the Miami Heat defeats the Boston Celtics here, they're up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're very much looking like the second 8 seed in NBA history to go to an NBA Finals. And we saw things also get a little nasty there during the end of the game. But, I mean, you see this in sports where you have this discussion. Do you go with somebody that doesn't have experience? You know, the Mets tried this route. They tried the Louis Rojas's, the Mickey Callaways. Didn't work. I mean, Yankees tried it with Boone, and I guess it's worked. I mean, the Pinstripe Chronicles guys.
It really depends on the roster. Like,
right.
I know there's been talk about, and I believe a couple weeks ago, Billy brought his name up when Gallant first got fired. Was Chris Knobloch, the Hartford AHL coach for the Rangers. But see, a team like the Rangers, I think needs a veteran voice with all the veteran presence.
I think that team is and that team is in a position to win.
And same could be said for Toronto. Like I said, Toronto's job could eventually become open because of the new GM situation, and I think Washington as well. They have a good amount of veterans on their roster as well. The problem for them is they're in a bad spot right now, right? Right now, the Metropolitan Division clearly looks like it's in the hands of the Hurricanes, the Rangers, and the Devils, right? Yep. So now, if you're the Capitals, you're going to have to scratch and claw for a wild card spot.
You're battling with the Islanders. What do the
exactly.
Penguins do?
The New York Islanders have a very good roster, and Lou's going to bring back a good roster next year. So the Islanders will be in the mix for a wild card spot, right? What's Pittsburgh going to do?
I think Pittsburgh's a big question right now.
Mike Sullivan is their head coach. They're not changing. They're not changing of the guard yet either. But you got two older stars, just like an older Ovechkin. You got two older stars like Crosby and Malkin, and they're no shoe-in for the postseason because of how good the Metropolitan is with teams with.
Well, the Metro players. Was always good, though. The Metropolitan, even years ago. I mean, I want to come back to baseball because I got people here that they want to talk other sports. But the Metropolitan was always good. It was always Pittsburgh, Washington, Rangers for the most part have been pretty good.
The thing is, Carolina's got really good young players like Aho and Jarvis,
and they're all cheap. They're all cheap.
And the Devils have tremendous young players, right? The Rangers have a good mix of young players and veterans.
Yep.
And the young goaltender who is the best in the league, right? And then you got teams like the Islanders, the Capitals, the Penguins. They got a veteran type, veteran type group.
Let me bring in here because he's here. He's probably somewhere in a basketball court. He's with his fresh cut, the brute force, Brad Weiss. And first of all, the brute force, how you doing tonight?
Tom, what a great night. If only the Liberty would have won tonight, it would have made my night. So my team went 2-0 tonight in the first day of their tournament. I just watched an amazing finish between the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics.
I actually had that on. I was going to talk about that. Actually.
What a game. And then obviously the Mets. But, a lot of good things tonight. It's been a great night for sure. And yes, Sal the Barber got me right today.
You like Sal the Barber. Now, Sal the Barber hasn't cut my hair. As you can see, nobody's cut my hair, but that's okay. Actually, that's all right. But it's not about me. Obviously, good to be with you. I guess I'll come back to Rob Moroska in a second, but I will ask you about the New York Mets because I'm not going to ask you about the NHL. I'm going to ask you about the Mets because people actually have requested me to ask you some questions about baseball and basketball, which I'll be happy to do. So I want to thank those people who have messaged in. But, the New York Mets, it's funny because we were speaking last time. You were like, they got to prove it. They got to show something here. And they scratched out these wins against the Rays. And I agreed with you that they scratched out these wins and they were lucky to win them. And tonight, I guess it was watching the game here. You see ex-Met players, Ahmed Rosario and Andres Gimenez, and for the first half of the game, it looked like the 2021 New York Mets. And Carlos Carrasco pitches the first inning, and he pitches like he usually did in 2021, and pitches kind of okay afterwards, but still puts us in a hole. And yet, on the other hand, Pete Alonso, I guess, is doing his own Aaron Judge impression of 2022 into 23, and the Mets with some young bats, people have screamed to come up here, have kind of powered this team. into another come from behind win that was like last year. So the brute force, Brad Weiss, you're back with us. And for those that are listening and watching, wherever they might be, I mean, how do you feel right now with this Mets team on their longest winning streak since now April the 21st?
People are going to be surprised by my answer, but I'm going to say I don't feel much different than last week. And people are going to be shocked because if you guys heard about last week, I was very down on the Mets. I told you I lost my confidence,
Even yesterday, we spoke on Instagram for a few minutes, and you pretty much still weren't convinced.
Yeah, and I'm still not 100% convinced. Now, listen, they won a series against Tampa Bay, and I think that was good. It was good for the team, and obviously tonight's win, they come back and win. But you said the key word, Tom, come back and win. You know why they're coming back in games? Because
straight games, they're starting the game off down. Did you hear that stat for the guys who watched? I mean, that's mind-boggling.
That's a problem, Tom, and that's not sustainable. And that's why I'm here not to go crazy. You know what? I just actually had a similar situation with my sixth graders who played tonight. In the last 7 games before this one, we were losing in the first half, and it made us really difficult to win games, and we let a few slide away. Tonight, we won both in the first half. We won both games in the first half, and we won both games. It is more sustainable to the success of the team when you're winning and when you're ahead. And the New York Mets, ladies and gentlemen, are always behind because their pitching sucks. Okay, and I'm not going to say that it's been so much better. It really has. I mean, Carlos Carrasco, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, batting practice is being nice. I know that he pitched better after the initial blow.
Yeah, I was listening to Gary and Ron and Keith talk about this, and I'm still like, he had a bad outing, gave up 5 runs and struggled. I mean, he struggled for the love of God to get out of that fifth inning.
Every start he starts, he lets up a 3-run homer in the first inning. It's like an automatic, 3 runs. You might as well just put a 3 up already before the game starts. You had David Peterson doing the same thing recently. Yeah. I mean, Kodai Senga, yeah, he's had some good outings, but he's still getting his kinks in. He still has his up and downs. Scherzer, everybody's going nuts about how he pitched well against the Nationals. All right, well, they're still the Nationals. I know we can't beat them, but they are the Nationals. So I'd really like to see how he does against a better Guardians team. But the other thing is, Tom, is that we can't forget that, the Mets have actually proven this season one thing, which is pretty shocking, Tom. They can beat some of the better teams, but they can't beat the weaker. They can't.
We played well against the Dodgers. We played well against the Rays. The Guardians.
Surprisingly, they've actually proven to us that they could beat those teams, but they can't beat the weaker teams. So to me, yes, it's good that the Mets are getting themselves at least a little bit of momentum here. I'm hoping that continues. But I am not going to go crazy. I'm not going to do a New York Knicks, New York stand-up, go crazy because they have comeback wins, right? Because, again, they're coming back from deficits because their pitching is putting them behind, and the Mets' bats are having to bail them out. Now, to that credit, some of the young guys who came up, Vientos has been an impact already, right? You talk about, all of a sudden Alvarez has been great.
Alvarez has become the second coming, I guess, of Rogers Hornsby in his position. I mean, he's
like Alvarez. I mean, listen, I know we brought up Gary Sanchez, and like I said, let's make this clear. I'm going to make it clear again. He needs to be the DH, not the catcher. He needs to be a DH because our DH, Mr. Vogelback, who I got to see today come up at bat in that last inning, struck out as he normally does.
That before he came on the air, that Vogelback, I mean, his time as a New York Met is probably...
I said it last week, and I'll say it again. Some of these guys are wasted spots on the roster.
It's like the scenes. There's 2 scenes, and I won't spoil it too much. In John Wick 4, where the hourglass, for those who saw John Wick 4, yes. The hourglass kind of spins to no level. Basically, Daniel Vogelback.
I referred to it last week as dead weight, and I think you talk about Vogelback. He's dead weight, right? You talk about Escobar, who I know has been okay.
Escobar at least stole the base. He created something.
I could live with him a little bit more, but Vogelback, he's paid to hit.
He's becoming the new Darren Ruff for Met fans.
He's paid to be a
Vogelback's got to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's supposed to be a power bat. He has 2 home runs. 2!
And 50-something at bats already?
I mean, this man, listen, I could do a better job of swinging at pitches than him because he takes pitches like it's nothing. I mean, he just watches pitches go for strikes over. I can't watch that from a DH. That's not your job. Your job is to hit the baseball. Your job is to swing at good pitches. And this guy just takes too many pitches, This is not. And again, when you have Vientos, when you have Mauricio, when you have some of these, give them the chance to DH and play almost every day. Stop wasting Vogelback at bats. And I heard in a press conference with Buck Showalter, they basically said after the first game Vientos played, why isn't Vientos in the lineup again? And he said, because Vogelback is a good option. Really? What has he done to show you that?
There was a lot of Buck used during the week. Everyone plays, and you got to go out there or something like that. It was bizarre.
Do, though? He's going to go in the press conference and say, no, we think Vogelback sucks. He's not going to say that.
No, listen, Justin, I'm a coach. I would have said the same thing. But what I'm saying is that in reality, we all know, and Buck knows, he's not going to say it, but he knows that Vogelback is not the answer and not a guy.
What do you think it is? Do you think it's management?
Look at tonight. Mark Vientos started against a right-handed pitcher. That tells you all you need to know about the confidence of Daniel Vogelback. To your point, one thing you're wrong about is Gary Sanchez should catch once a week, max maybe twice. Mark Vientos needs to be the DH every day.
Well, we'll see. I got some comments, though, because people do want to talk, and I want to bring Rob Morosky in. I got a couple of comments here. Anthony Finkel gives a loud brood, and Anthony Finkel, who's coming, I guess, still from us in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, out there at Old Pizza Wagon. He also says, sounds like the Mets play to their opponent's level. That's a good line, because sometimes you see that in sports where teams play better for whatever reason against the teams maybe similar to them or better than them, and I think that's a great point. Billy Mazier, obviously, a huge Mets fan. Billy Mazier comes from our neck of the woods, Rob Morosky. You might even know Bill Mazier, Rob Morosky. He's actually a West Brighton's mailman. You might even know him. I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But here nor there. Rather watch Cologne hit than Fogle.
Not wrong.
Wasn't Cologne back at Citi Field not too long ago? I feel like that was a couple weeks ago.
He threw out the first pitch.
That's my point.
On the 7th anniversary of that home run.
Yes.
Well, you know what? Vogelback's coming into that territory. He's coming into that territory. But, let's speak about a positive Rob Morosky on this Mets team, and I mentioned it, and I'll come back to some of the other guys in a second. We wanted to get the brute force Brad Weiss and work him back in as he just ran in here from whatever 8,000 things he was doing. But, Pete Alonso, 17 home runs in 4 straight games. I mean, is this what's going to carry this team? You're starting to see the lineup, maybe the last 4 games, and I think Justin brought this up last week on the show. He wasn't that worried about the lineup, and maybe you are starting to see it. Now, Nimmo, you'd like to see him do a little bit better. McNeil's numbers aren't what you hope for. Marte, obviously, we've spoken about. Lindor, he's kind of having a Lindor season at this point. His batting average isn't very good, but he's probably going to have the RBIs where he was last year and home runs. But, I mean, can Pete Alonso keep this up and carry this Mets team into where maybe these guys get hot and take the load off him? Because eventually he will cool off.
Yeah, and Pete is the key. I mean, look what happens when he's hitting those home runs. Everybody's like, the bench is going crazy. Everybody's going crazy. He's going crazy. Fans are going crazy, and it's great. I'm not that worried about the hitting, like we said. It's the pitching, and the pitching is old, and there's no way to get around it. That's why the team is built to win now. There's things that have to be corrected, like we're saying. The DH, Vogelback, forget about him. All right, he gets up there, and you say to yourself, here's what I say to myself: I say he's going to strike out, and what happens?
It's turning into like years ago and I've said this before. Like John Mayberry Jr. was up there. I know I've gotten beaten up for this. It's turning into like those retreads we had, whether it was Rod Barajas, a catcher, and just these John Buck. It's turning into like that territory where this guy, unfortunately, like he's not an everyday player. And if you're going to really be a playoff team, it's going to come to a point that you have to cut this guy. Billy Hamilton was another example of a guy we had guy literally could get on base. He could steal a base as a pinch runner, but just couldn't hit for us. And he's turning into that territory.
But quickly before Rob goes back, at least he could run the bases. What does Vogelback do?
Nothing.
Nothing else.
Just look at his face when he takes a swing and he misses, and it's like I just dread him getting up. I mean, at least Escobar has been a little better as a
Yeah,
pinch
Escobar, for a lot of the beating Escobar gets, and I'm not going to defend him, but he did have one really huge month last year. And you looked at the back, if you didn't watch these games, right? Take aside, you weren't a Met fan, you weren't a Yankee fan, you weren't a baseball fan, and you looked at the back of his baseball card last year, and you'll probably look at the back of his card this year and say, well, you know what? This guy was an interesting player, but you didn't watch like 80% of the time when the guy did.
Didn't he have like 20 home runs last year?
Yes, and he had like 7 of them in the month of September.
Turned out to not be so bad. You know
exactly.
What? I personally, it upsets me that Escobar takes the heat. I know he's not performed to what we expect, but I really do like Escobar, and for the clubhouse, I do think there's a real role on this team for Eduardo Escobar. Whether it's an occasional game at second base and you put McNeil in the outfield, or the one-off that Beatty might need an off day. Escobar has a role on this team. Daniel Vogelbach has no role in this team.
Well, I want to throw something out there. Let me throw something out there for the Met and Yankee fans here. As we're here on Sportswire Radio. If you are listening and watching, please follow us on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. A lot of new subscribers. Just reached the 600 follower mark. Also on YouTube, we're at Sportswire Radio. Have a lot of new followers on YouTube, so thank you so much. But let me ask this question. I'm going to throw this out there. Who's more of a liability for their team right now, Aaron Hicks or Daniel Vogelbach?
Oh, that's easy.
It's easy. At least Aaron Hicks, I'm sure, swings the bat. I feel like Daniel. I swear every time I watch Daniel Vogelbach bat, I feel like he never swings the bat.
He doesn't swing. And plus, the other thing that I was going to add in about Escobar is that at least he's a guy that can then hit from both sides of the plate, and it gives you like some sort of threat, right, in certain situations, right? Vogelbach, right? He can't even hit a right-hand pitcher. We know he can't hit a left-hand pitcher, even when he does swing, right? He can't hit a right-hand pitcher because he doesn't swing. He doesn't swing. So, I mean, he doesn't do anything to help you. So, to me, that's an obvious, easy question. I know Chris watches the Yankees more, so he suffers more with Hicks. So, his answer should be Hicks.
Hicks going into today. Yeah, jump in.
No, I was going to say, you guys have the easier fix. You guys could just cut Vogelbach. It's an easy, $1.5 million. It's like, all right, yeah, I could eat that. The Yankees got to eat almost $30 million with Hicks. Yeah, otherwise, he would have been gone last year.
1.4 million on Vogelbach's 1-year deal.
Yeah, he's nothing. That's nothing.
Cohen
wipes his butt with more than that.
I personally think he's going to get DFA'd in the next couple of weeks, because I think you're going to start to see his role diminish. Now, I don't know what that means for who gets called up. I'm gonna pump the brakes on bringing up Ronnie Mauricio, just because you have Jeff McNeil, and I do still to a degree trust Mark Hanna, even as a veteran struggling. I know you could put McNeil in the outfield.
Well, you can't cut everybody. You can't DFA everybody. Some guys are just going to get it.
But I'm just trying to think. What's the roster solution for replacing Vogelbach on the roster? Who's going to get that call?
Well, who else is on the 40-man that you have in AAA?
Well,
Luis got sent down recently.
That's exactly the name I was going to say.
You could just bring Guillorme back up, and now you have your backup shortstop back.
Yeah, and he plays multiple positions. He can run the base.
Yeah, Guillorme's competent. Ernest Dove's out there somewhere on a couch praying that Luis Guillorme comes back up. Obviously, Louis and him have a special relationship.
That's the move right there, then.
Guillorme in a couple of weeks.
That's got to be the move.
I mean, we'll see here. And Yankee schedule, by the way, coming up here, have the Orioles and the Padres after this series in Cincinnati. And 11:35 start time, Yankees are going to be on Peacock here. So, I mean, I have to throw it out there. Anybody watching Peacock Sunday, 11:35?
Nope.
No.
I'll be listening to the radio, unfortunately, but.
All right, fair enough. I had to throw that out there. And Anthony Finkel says, put me in, coach. Anthony Finkel, I didn't know you were a baseball player. I saw you more of a basketball player with your size and stuff. I didn't know you were a baseball player.
Anthony Finkel, if you swing the bat, we'll take you over Vogelbach. You take some hard cuts, we'll take you. You can see you swing. All right, he's ready to swing. That's what he's saying. He's ready to swing.
No, listen, everybody's ready to swing. Well, you got to get up there. And I know Justin had a comment in the chat I'll address in a second, but Billy Mazier's got a comment here. And thank you, Billy. Where have you been, Billy Mazier? I feel like I haven't run into Billy Mazier in ages. Where have you been? I think I see your sister more than I see you these days. But Ohtani is the perfect DH solution for the Mets. Well, he's got to come to the Mets first, right? I mean, that's what somebody was trying to tell me today.
All right, can we take a minute to just appreciate the greatness of Shohei Ohtani?
Set a record yesterday.
The other day, for the second time this season, he came one leg shy of hitting for the cycle.
Yep.
And every single time he steps on the field, it's like he's making history. And I think we have the opportunity now to appreciate the greatness that he is, has put out on the field. He's a great pitcher, and he's an incredible hitter. And the other day, he and Trout both hit home runs, and they actually won the game, by the way. And the Angels are actually playing some pretty good baseball right now. And it would be nice to see the Angels be good this year, because how great would it be to have those two stars in the postseason?
You think about it, and I'm going to ask you guys all a general question so people can get in on this. Everybody can get it, even people in comments. You think about the Angels, right? They've had Trout and Ohtani for a while, and they've had really minimal success. Maybe this year it changes. I don't know. We'll see. But, we'll have to see. But I'll ask you guys then this general question, just kind of for the sports fans even out there. What we're seeing here with Ohtani, will we ever see this again in sports? A guy who's a two-way player, who's a great pitcher. He's got 5-1. He's got 70-plus strikeouts. He's got 10 home runs. He's near the top of the league in most categories. I'm trying to think, in the NFL, right, you don't see a defensive player and an offensive player really dominating both positions.
I don't think we'll ever see it there.
Deion Sanders kind of did that. I wouldn't say to that level. In the NBA, you really can't quantify a two-way player. The NHL, you don't have a goaltender who scores, or a forward or defenseman that plays goaltender. I've covered in sports. I've covered two sports stars. Obviously, Katie Healy comes to mind, a very niche level in John Jay. We've obviously Gordon Scheuer, our buddy Brad, played tennis and was a good tennis player and a basketball player. But when it comes to Shohei Ohtani, are we ever going to see something like this again for all you guys?
Well, in baseball, this is like, they might say, a once in a lifetime deal.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a pitcher as a pitcher and a hitter, who knows? But another name, if you're talking two sports, you said Deion Sanders. But
in the sport of football, not so much two sport, but in the sport of football, he actually, he got punt returns.
Played on both sides.
Yes, that's kind of my point. Okay. The two sports stars, you'll get those occasionally. Brian Jordan came to mind, Bo Jackson.
That's right.
Technically, Russell Wilson was drafted. Tom Brady was the last player technically playing for the Expos, if kind of the joke that was everybody was talking about. So I think you'll get people drafted, maybe two sports, but I'm talking about somebody in the major sports, right? That's actually doing what he's doing. Deion Sanders came to my mind because, again, he received briefly.
But he was like he had a couple of plays on offense. Not
to this level. Right. I'm just trying to think
to be honest, I think in the future we'll probably see it, just because people are being developed differently now. I think people are in better shape. They're training differently. I'm not saying that Ohtani's going to happen again, next year or in the next 2 years. But I think we're going to see it again at some point in the future. I just don't think it's going to be in the near future. I would say 5 to 10 years. Yeah, we might see this again. But
this question's twofold. We're going to absolutely see another two-way player come up to the big leagues. Chris's timeline might be accurate, maybe a little bit sooner. But the answer is no, because we'll never see anybody to the magnitude of Shohei Ohtani. There's not going to be another Shohei Ohtani to perform as high of a level.
This guy's got 5 wins. He's at the top of his rotation. He hits. He's got double digits in home runs. He's been a 40-plus home run guy.
Which begs the question: what are you going to pay him?
Because here's the thing: how long is he going to be able to do both pitching and hitting the way he's doing. Like, is this going to be his 10-year, 15-year career of him doing this? I don't know.
That's a good question because Babe Ruth couldn't do it that long. So he's
What did Babe Ruth do it for like 5 years?
Did it.
5, maybe.
He never did this.
Well, I know Shotani's going to do it longer, but Chris, you don't think that's a good comparison with Babe Ruth?
No. It's a great comparison, but I'm saying Babe Ruth never did this. He never played a full season as a pitcher and a hitter.
Oh, okay.
That Ohtani's doing.
Yeah, you're right. No one has ever done
right.
That.
That's why this is like, this is.
Well, that's why I bring it up because if you think about
it is
to the outfield, but Babe Ruth was only hitting when he was pitching. Shohei Ohtani DHs every single time he's not on the mound.
That's amazing. If you think
that's
about
what I mean. He's doing things that nobody's ever done.
Think about how amazing that is. All these pitchers need, especially in Japan. What do they have? Like 8-9 days rest in between.
So they pitch like once a week. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look what the Mets are doing for Senga and for Ohtani to do this. It's just amazing, and it's great to watch and see.
Let me ask the brute force Brad Weiss, because he's obviously been an athlete. He's had some success, and he's coaching now. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, I kind of think, really, personally, we're not going to see this at this level. And I had to think of the 4 major sports. Again, you don't have somebody in hockey goaltend and play forward at the same time. I mean, the NFL, Deion Sanders, I'm trying to think, was it Devin Hester, I think, did a little bit of that maybe. He did punts and receiving, which is not quite the same analogy. I mean, you don't really see this in the NBA. You can't quantify this. So, I mean, what Ohtani's doing is really like rarefied air. I mean, do you see this being done again?
So I think Justin gave a really good answer to the question. I'm going to kind of be a little more specific and use basketball kind of as an example to preface this example. So when it comes to, will we see this again? I think we will. But, I don't know if anyone's going to do it to as high of a level as Ohtani. Now, the reason why I'm confident that we're going to see it is because look at Steph Curry in basketball, where kids all over the world are now shooting 40-foot threes, right? Because they watch this kid do it, and now, they watch Steph Curry do it, so now all these kids want to be like him. How many kids out there want to be like Ohtani now? I think there's going to be a lot of them. And I think that as we continue to go forward, especially now, with every year, it almost seems like, you keep going down in the amount of innings on average that pitchers are starting. Right. They're not throwing as many innings. They're coming out quicker. They're throwing less pitches. So I think that there will be people who attempt this. And I think that there will be some players who are good pitchers and are going to field at a high level. I think there's going to be some guys who pitch at a high level and bat both ways. Switch hitters, which will, give a little bit of an interesting wrinkle to Ohtani because he only bats left-handed, but obviously he could hit both sides. When it comes to right-handed and left-handed pitchers very well. But again, I do agree with Justin. To this magnitude, like what he's doing is at a very high special level. He's one of the best players in baseball doing it. I think we're going to see versions of this, but they're not going to be at the top of the game like Ohtani's going to be. There's going to be guys who try.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Mazier brings up Jacob deGrom, and deGrom hit really well, but we didn't see that many at-bats from him. You didn't put him in the lineup. You've had other guys in the past. Mike Hampton hit very well, and he pitched, and then he wound up going to Coors Field and got hit. He was actually hitting better than he was pitching for a brief period. I mean, I've brought up Rick Ankiel in the past, but he had some problems. We actually had to adjust the complete other way. I mean, there have been great faceted pitchers.
A really good hitter, and I don't know if any of you guys remember him because you said Colorado. Yeah. You guys remember a pitcher by the name of Jason Jennings?
Yeah, he pitched. He was almost like a journeyman, Jason.
Right-hander mostly for the Rockies.
His ERA was pretty high.
That dude could hit some absolute moonshots. I mean, he was a very, very good hitting pitcher.
Well, what
Yeah,
about Hampton, right, for the Mets? He was pretty
I
good.
brought him up. That was my analogy. Listen, he went to the Mets.
That's where I got the comparison from.
And the Rockies were using him, if I recall correctly, as a pinch hitter for a while, and they were actually leaving him in games here. And a couple of more comments here. Billy Mazier goes on about DeGrom. Anthony Finkel says, a future generation of Mahomes, Curry, and Otani inspired players sounds like a good future to me. Yeah, I mean, look, Mahomes, and obviously Mahomes got the baseball influence because his father was Pat Mahomes Sr., and Steph Curry was influenced, let's not forget, by his father, Del Curry, wasn't too bad of a player. I think his mother was an athlete also, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, sometimes you got to have luck in genes, and, we'll have to see, I guess. I mean, obviously, we'll figure it all out here. I want to get some scores of note here before I change over and talk about some different things here. Pirates get a win here over the Diamondbacks, 13-3. Maybe Pirates get back on track. Bronx Bombers 6, Reds 2, Rays 1, Brewers nothing. Tigers, I don't know if you're buying the Tigers or not, but they're starting to look like maybe they could be that team to challenge the Twins. They get an 8-6 win over the Nationals. Cubs, who the Mets are going to see, gentlemen, here next week, win 10-1 over the Brute Force's beloved Philadelphia Phillies here. Orioles 6, Orioles 6, Blue Jays 2, our beloved Mets 10, Guardians 9, Braves 6, Mariners 2. Mariners, I can't quite figure out the Mariners. I'll talk about that maybe next. Rangers 7, Rockies 2. White Sox, break up the White Sox. I think it's 3 wins in their last 4 games. Get a win over the Royals 2-0. Astros 5, Athletics 1. Dodgers get a win, come back against the Cardinals, who yesterday, by the way, was a football game. Was I watching Rams versus Cardinals of old, or is this one of the old St. Louis, Los Angeles matchups, which was 16 today, but it was 5-0 today, Dodgers over the Cardinals. Twins are up 4-3 over the Angels, top of the 7th, and also here we have the Red Sox 6, Padres 1. Padres really right now looking like they're a big disappointment right now. I know it's early, and Giants 1, Marlins nothing. Marlins have been kind of a mild surprise here. So those are some of the scores here. And before I go over to the Brute Force and the NBA, because a couple of people asked me to ask you about the Celtics and the Heat, a few other series of note here, obviously going around the league. But, a couple of teams, gentlemen, I mentioned. And I'll go with you, Chris, first. I know you're going to talk about it, obviously, on Monday's Talking Rival Show, and I got a chance to listen to the show here we played today. And that's the Padres, to me, are a glaring exception. 20-24. I look at them, and they're a team I have to say has got to be a big disappointment. I'm not going to really rattle off much about the White Sox. I don't think that much of them. We spoke about the Cardinals in the past. I mean, you got the Mariners right now, 21-23. Everybody was high on them. So I'm going to ask you specifically on the Mariners and Padres. Is this a sign of things to come? Are these teams two of the biggest disappointments in baseball? And just what's your overall impressions on those two teams right now?
Yeah, they're definitely the 2 bigger disappointments in the league right now, for sure. Just looking at San Diego, it's like there's something wrong there because there's enough talent. Machado just went on the IL today with the thumb, so maybe that is what they need, like to kind of wake them up a little bit. Because when you look at their offense, they just haven't been going. Soto. He's finally starting to hit. I mean, the first month, and even going back to since they acquired him last year, he just wasn't hitting for them. So maybe this is what gets them going. You gotta.
Nola's been off to a terrible start, by the way.
Yeah,
Austin Nola. I mean, I was listening to Buddy Black. He was on MLB Network on the radio station a couple of days ago, and they were asking him, like, what's going on with Austin Nola? I mean, Joe Musgrove had a horrible start. I mean, just these guys. Yep. You expected more out of them, and I look at it going into tonight. If they lose 20-25, I mean, we talk about the Mets, and we talked about them and crapped on them in some ways. At least the Mets,
you got to expect them to turn it around because the talent is there, right? It's not like they got a whole bunch of injuries, so they should turn it around. And Seattle lost Robbie Ray, right? So he's done for the year, but I think they're getting Munoz back soon. So you got to. These teams, I think you're going to see them bounce back. The West is kind of a little bit upside down, right? You got Texas
it's kind of weird right now. Yep.
The Angels are hanging around. So
Houston's okay.
Listen.
I think the Mariners have that benefit of the AL West is kind of
in flux.
Well, some of the teams have good records. It's not as strong as having the Padres having to deal with the Dodgers. I mean,
And
the
even
Dodgers
Arizona's played very well before tonight. Arizona's still above 500.
Yeah, we talk about their surprising start every week, and I still continue to not really buy into Arizona quite yet.
But eventually,
I do think when push comes to shove, the Padres do end up in second place. But when you're dealing with the Dodgers in that division, it's almost like the Dodgers. You feel like they're going to just run and hide in that division, because I do think, even though they're three games up on the Diamondbacks, I do think they're going to come back to earth. San Diego's 7.5 back.
San Francisco's kind of where I think the analogy
7 right now.
Yeah, the analogy with San Francisco is they're almost like kind of like Brad, the Atlanta Falcons of Major League Baseball. They're like not the worst team, not the best team. They're kind of like in purgatory, like right around. They're going to be probably right around.
Yeah, they're not going to be good enough to make the playoffs, and they're not going to be bad enough to get the first overall pick and get the top baseball draftee. But the Dodgers, though, they're playing well, but their injuries are starting to pile up. Losing Dustin May the other day, I think, was a crushing blow. Now we'll see how long he's out for, but they're in a good position where they should be able to just have another summer where
they might be up 8-9 games in the middle of
exactly. And if San Diego doesn't get their act together, it might be good night by All-Star break. Now, I wonder this. Is Fernando Tatis the problem?
Why would he be the problem?
Because ever since he's come back, they've kind of sunk.
But that's a part of their lineup as a whole. I mean, if you go up and down the lineup, I mean, Soto, Chris talked about, hasn't done much.
Yeah, but you know what? The team felt more whole the team actually felt more whole without him last year, to be honest.
Maybe it's the top of their lineup that's a problem, and that's really their issue right now.
The guy that they signed from the Yankees, Matt Carpenter, he's done. I think he's
3 home runs. The guy was the second coming of Babe Ruth last year, and he's got 3 home runs for him. I mean, that's a fair point.
Yeah, no, I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna flip the script eventually. I can't see them being below 500 for much longer. And then when you look at the AL West as well, I think the team you got to be a little bit worried about, even though I think they're going to come back, is the Astros, because the Astros have a lot of injuries at the starting rotation, right?
And I think the Astros and Dodgers are almost like in the same spot in a way, because you're always kind of waiting for the shoe to drop on them, and yet every year in the standings, they're always at the top.
Right. It's going to be tough for the Astros.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tougher for the Astros. The Dodgers have already
a lot of injuries with their rotation.
Hold of the division.
You guys buying the Texas Rangers this year? You buying them?
I don't know who I buy in the West right now, to be honest.
Yeah,
I really don't
know either, because Seattle's disappointed. Astros have not been great, although they just got Altuve back tonight. Texas is right now still playing without DeGrom, and he threw a bullpen, I believe, yesterday or today, and he's making his way back. And the Angels, they're floating around 500.
They're 500 with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, but they should be on paper better than that. I mean,
I actually can't even say they're starting pitching. It's really their bullpen that has just been an absolute nightmare.
Yep.
They're like a poor team's version of. Not to make this comparison too much, because Edmonton at least has gotten into the playoffs and gotten deep, but they're like Edmonton in a way.
Right.
Edmonton has Draisaitl and McDavid. They've got Nugent Hopkins, Kane, all these superstars, but they haven't won a championship. Now, the Angels haven't even gotten to 500 of late, but that's my point. Now, I'll ask you guys conversely. I mean, in the American League Central and the National League Central, you've got Milwaukee and Pittsburgh kind of locked into this race. Cardinals have kind of gotten back into it. Then in the American League Central, I mean, you got Cleveland, which lost tonight, which is kind of hanging around. The team that I hate to bring them up because Brad kind of trashed them about 30 minutes ago. That's actually won, I think, 7 of their last 10 series. Is, I hate to say it, the Detroit Tigers, and they win tonight. And is that the team that maybe gives the Twins here a run for the money? Because I'm not even that convinced about the Twins, because last year
the Twins should be running away with it.
But they're
I
not.
don't.
They were
I
first place
don't.
last year
Detroit's
for
pitching.
almost the entire season, and they choked it away. So
Yeah.
Aside from how good Eduardo Rodriguez has been for Detroit, I don't necessarily like their pitching. I do think when push comes to shove, Minnesota is going to start pulling away. Right now they're sitting with a 3-game lead. They're 24-20. They're 4 up on the four up on the Guardians, 8 up on the White Sox. The White Sox are. I told you the White Sox are overrated.
Well, the White Sox, I was listening to it today, last night, I should say, overnight, that basically the White Sox should now all of a sudden have how yard sales are starting to pop up? They should have a yard sale every weekend for which player you might want to take from them today, because everybody on that team should just be available.
100%, yeah. Unless your name is Luis Robert or Eloy Jimenez, you're available.
And they might be too. You never know.
You know what? Maybe, because you know what? It's time to blow it up, because the White Sox are another team that have had hype for the last couple of years, like the Blue Jays, and have done.
Where the White Sox win a total of one playoff game in their run of hype. There's one postseason game total.
Yep.
So I got a couple of comments here first, and I want to get to somebody that wants to say hello to you, the Brute Force. But before I do that, Billy Mazier says Edmonton needs a shutdown goalie. Goaltending has been mediocre at best. I think mediocre at best here. But, for you, Brad, I want to get to the man that has certainly kind of taken a larger-than-life presence here on Sportswire Radio. He's the IMF World Champion. He's 385 pounds, all brute. He's 5'11", but he's got the weight advantage on you. May have the height advantage, but he's got a substantial weight advantage. He's a world champion. His name is Omen Black. He's kind of, like I said, a larger-than-life personality. He's the man from the House of Wolves, and he says brute force in caps lock. He also says, thought I forgot to stop by, didn't you? Now, Brad, were you kind of wondering where was Omen Black? Because your name came up, I think it came up today from John Gonzalez, and I think it came up yesterday for whatever reason with the UK wrestler. So, anything do you want to say hello to Mr. Black?
I'll say this. No, I did not think you would forget, because Omen Black, as I said in my last comment when Omen was on, has been one of my biggest supporters on Sportswire Radio, and especially when it comes to the wrestlers. this guy really supports me. So, no.
How does it make you feel to have wrestlers supporting you? How does that make you feel?
I will say what I thought. I know I probably made some people nervous when I was a little late today, but I know Owen was going to show up. I'm trying to find out, though, that other guy. I think his name is John Gonzalez. Where's he at right now?
Well, you should know that John Gonzalez today, and I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday with Bentley, who's in the GT Ministries main event, which will be today. Now, he wanted you to go up against Bad Bunny, by the way. So he's still going on about you and Bad Bunny now.
He just wants everybody to line up against me.
I would like to see it only under one condition. If you won, you would get the rights to Kendall Jenner. Now, that would be the only way I would like to see.
Oh, man. This is getting crazy. But what I will say is, in all seriousness, I love Omen Black. He's the man.
Yeah.
I enjoy listening to him, too. I like his confidence.
Omen's a good dude. Omen is a good dude. Oh, I got to say, Omen, we've had a lot of people on Sportswire. I've had a lot of people in my career I've spoken to, but Omen Black has quickly become one of my favorites here on Sportswire.
He's well-spoken. He's a good guy.
The businessman also. He's a businessman, hard worker.
Businessman. Again, his confidence reeks, I can just feel his confidence, and I like that about him. He's a really confident person, and so am I. We all know I'm Mr. Confidence when it comes to every other team except for the Mets right now. But listen, I am Mr. Confidence, so I appreciate his confidence because he has a lot of it.
All right, fair enough. He also says real recognizes real, and I want everybody, before we come back to sports, go to the IMF page at IMF_wrestling on Instagram, IMF Wrestling 666, and please follow our friends over at the IMF. We'll have more coverage of them as the guys are getting ready for 2 big shows coming up next weekend. And then they'll also be back out at June 18th. It'll be Rage in the Cage. So stay tuned for us here on Sportswire for more comments. But I want to ask you guys a fun question. I got 4 of you here, and I'm going to try to work everybody in here because I was wondering about this. I even heard this during the Inside the NBA coverage here. And obviously with the Heat and Celtics, I'm still watching. I'm going to get to you, Brad, in a few minutes. But to kind of work everybody in here in a fun way, Did any of you stay up yesterday and watch what I had to have felt like maybe the longest game in sports history, playoff sports history at least? I know there's probably been longer ones, maybe in the analogies of time, but did anybody actually stay up and watch this nearly 5 overtime game between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers as the Vegas Golden Knights win against the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference?
And by the way, thankfully, that was only one overtime tonight.
Raised your hand, I think, right?
Yep, Vegas.
Hello.
Fortunately for us, Vegas only won in one overtime. But the fact that it took to
here we go.
The fact that it took till 12 and a half seconds of the fourth overtime to score that goal by Matthew Tkachuk. I stayed up for the whole thing. It's funny. I got home during like the third period, and I saw more of the game than not because
it's funny you said that because I think I was like you. I got home about 10:30, and I think the game was just in the late third period, was like 12 minutes left or something like that. And I wound up watching the game up until almost 2:00 in the morning. Yeah, it was like just about 2:00 the game ended. Yeah, it was kind of like,
call me crazy, but you know what? I couldn't shut it off. Although I will say, I said to myself as you could hear the PA announcer say last minute in the fourth overtime. I'm like, all right.
Well, you know what's funny? It's funny you said that, and I want to ask.
I'm done.
I want to ask Brad Weiss a question. This in a different twist in a second. But I was listening to the public address announcer, and you could tell, like in his voice, that like he didn't have much left in him. You could tell, like even the announcers, you're watching Keith Jones during the bench, you could tell their mannerisms that these guys were tired. Now, you usually don't see that in commentators, so I thought that was fascinating.
You could even see it. Did you watch the intermissions too? You could
Gretzky was basically
Wayne Gretzky wanted to go home.
Yeah, that's what he said. No, listen. And then I think it was Jackie Redmond who does work at Omen will know this for WWE, and they were speaking with it was Matthew Tkachuk, and they were asking him about when he scored the goal and how'd you guys stay replenished and pizza slices and water bottles and it almost sounded like something out of Animal House almost.
I mean, it is the ultimate. It's the ultimate testament because of you got to be quick. 25, 30 seconds on and off the ice.
The guys played 50. I think it was 50 minutes.
One skate up the ice, one skate down the ice, off.
Yeah, 50 or 51 minutes. But Brad, I got a special request from Omen Black before I move on to the rest of the guys here. And actually, Omen wants to know. Hit him with a hot take.
Oh, you want a hot take? All right. So,
he's the champion.
Oh boy.
well, first let me go with this. Let me answer your question because I think it's actually a fascinating one. That first of all, the answer is no for me. The hockey game was actually on the TV, so I was watching it a little bit. But second overtime, I was already ready to go to bed.
Yeah,
but I will say that having coached a lot of games like in a day before, where it gets to be a lot, like all those hours. You talk about
stay up to date with that.
Like how it's very hard. It's very hard, especially when you just continue. I relate it to coaching because you kind of get those short increment breaks, and then you go again, short increment, right? And you just keep going. Yep. So it is quite a challenge, and you have to really. It's a big mental game. Everybody thinks that they're physically drained, which they are. Okay, it is very much mental in those situations. How much are you going to cope with it mentally? And it's tough. That's a lot of ice time for those guys, and. In my sense as a basketball player, it's a lot of running. And for those guys, it's a lot of skating. So it's certainly, again, a wide load. But Omen Black, you want a hot take? I'm going to give you one, all right? Because I think I should lead you right in to what I was going to talk about with the NBA because I have to give a hot take right now, all right? Right now. The Miami Heat are going to the NBA Finals. That's a hot take, all right? All right, because listen, nobody, all right, thought that this team was going to do it. And listen, I was obviously hoorah, New York Knicks last round against Miami and thought it was going to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, the Miami Heat are nothing to be messed with. And as an 8th seed, okay, they are like I don't want to use this term, but I'm going to. The fakest 8th seed ever because they are not an 8th seed caliber team.
I had a conversation with Anthony Steele off the air who had asked me. He was
what you
thought on that?
Everybody's getting fooled by the fact that there's a number 8 next to their name when it comes to the Miami. They are not a typical 8th seed. I mean, this is a team that people forget have been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 years out of the last 4. This is
an NBA Finals appearance with them.
This is a team that is coached by an exceptionally high-level coach, one of the best coaches, if not the best, right now in the NBA.
I would dare say in all of the 4 major sports. I would dare say Eric Spoelstra, the job that this guy's done. I mean,
yes, and he deserves every single ounce of credit for that because he is a great coach. I know some people used to go wild about, oh, well, he had LeBron James.
He was a Riley puppet. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but listen, this guy, he's done everything. You know, like there's other coaches that have lost their superstars and they've just done nothing. Like Eric Spoelstra.
I will say this though. And Brad actually had like a coaching type question because we were talking about the 4 overtime game. But one thing I will say about Spoelstra real quick is I feel like he was the one true coach, maybe Tyronn Lue as well, but I think he was the one true coach LeBron truly respected. And I think got the best out of them.
Yeah.
Now speaking of coaching, what do you even say to your guys after multiple overtimes? Do you even say?
What do you say? Especially after you lost. Yeah, after you lost that game, what do you say?
Well, even in between the overtimes, you're going between overtimes 2 and 3. What is there even to say? You're sitting in the dressing room for 15 minutes. What do you even say?
That is a spectacular question because, to your point, honestly, there really isn't much you can say. I mean, you know, it's tough because you know that your players put it all out on the line for that long, and they lost, but they did everything in their power to give themselves a chance to win. So, you know, there is that.
Unlike basketball, hockey has the intermissions between the periods.
Yes.
In basketball, you just go right to the next overtime.
Correct. So
go right to the next overtime.
Yeah, but listen, you do as you normally do. You know, after a game, you go on about what you could have done better. You look at the statistics. You explain that. But when it comes to, like, you know, sometimes when you lose, you talk about certain effort plays and, you know, the little things that you could do to be better. Like those type of things you can't talk about because when you get into a game like that and you get that far and you go that long, right? You clearly did that, even though you might have lost the game. It's tough to address it in that sense. And sometimes you add that to the conversation when you're a coach because that's a part of the reason why you lose, but not in those situations. So it is tough to kind of come together with certain things to say as a coach in those situations, but you find a way. And again, you don't want to harp on the negatives, especially in a game like that, because you really did a lot to win. You just got unlucky and you lost in 5 overtimes and you battled. So it is a tough slate to talk about. But again, I've been through that, you know, maybe not 5 overtimes, but overtime games, you know, close games that come down to a lucky shot or something.
Yeah, honestly, in Joe's games we covered where we lost some heartbreakers. I think about the game we lost. At the buzzer, we lost one.
All right, I've been in those situations, and, you know, the coaches have addressed it, and they talk about what we could have done better, but in the end, they can't question effort. They can't question certain execution. You know, sometimes the other team just out-executed you by one play or by one situation, and that's one of the toughest things as a coach to kind of address with your team. I had that happen a few weeks ago where my team lost in the championship by 2 points. They couldn't have played any better, but the other team just made the last shot because they had the ball last.
Well, conversely, when we beat Gordieso a couple of times, the other way around.
Well, listen, how do you think Jason felt after those games? I mean, my kid, by the way.
We'll ask Jason eventually. He'll be back on, Jason. I'll eventually get to him and ask him.
I mean, it's rough to tell a third grader, you know, after they played that well against a quality team. My team's a good team, and they battled, and they were right there. And then the kid, it's a buzzer-beating 3. I mean, it's hard to tell the kids, you know, and explain to the kids, oh, it's okay. Like, those kids are depressed. It's hard to do.
I think it'd actually be worse if I'm a third grader rather than a college player, because it's like, well, you know, I could go back and say I should have did this, I should have did that better, and I'm a third grader. It's like that's my impression I'm left with. So I think it'd actually be worse if I'm a third grader. And I have a couple of comments here before I come back to some of the things that Omen would also like to give a big plug. Also, he'll be back out there for Levi McDaniel's promotion. He'll say he'll be still world champion after I put that poor excuse of a wrestler. I can't even pronunciate the name. I feel like I'm on a Howard Stern kind of a thing here where I just cannot pronunciate this person's name. So I'm just going to say who, and probably some nobody. He'll put him through hell and tables. I have no doubt that. Wish me luck. but we all know I don't need it. Like I said, I'm a truthful man. I'm only telling you the truth that I'll win. Well, you'll be back on, wink, wink, probably Sunday night to talk about it. So I'm sure we'll hear from you there, champ, for sure. And Anthony Finkel makes a good point. All comes down to which team makes that one play. So, I mean, Brad, coming back to the NBA before I get to some final thoughts here for everybody else, I mean, I guess that the Miami Heat, I mean, like you said, they're the fakest 8th seed in history. If you want to call them an 8th seed, they're on the verge of being the second 8th seed to ever play in the NBA Finals. And the most fakest 8th seed in history, who was the first team to do it, was the 1999 New York Knicks. And the only reason they were an 8th seed was because it was a 50-game lockout season. And I think teams 1 through 8 were separated by 7 games, 8 games. So that really doesn't count. So, I mean, speaking of teams that make plays, it's the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat, for whatever reason, are 5-3 on the road this year in the playoffs. And one of the reasons why you think that they have a very good shot at getting into the NBA Finals is they haven't lost yet in Miami. And it seems like the way Boston played tonight, they're 10-11 the last 2 years at home, which is unbelievable in the playoffs in Boston. That it's almost a foregone conclusion that our buddy Alec Willis is going to be watching the NBA Finals like everybody else as a spectator.
I'm so glad you brought his name up because I have a big statement for that man.
Well, what was the hot take tonight?
This should have actually, I'm sorry, Omen Black. This really should have been my hottest take of the night because I got something to say to Alec Willis because he put himself on the record. He went one step too far and now is realizing that he stepped in mud because I'm about to make sure he is aware of the mistake that he made. Ladies and gentlemen, Alec Willis, all right, my good friend from St. Joe's, Brooklyn. A great.
He had a birthday not too long ago, by the way, and his family had birthdays also.
Yeah, happy belated birthday. He's from Staten Island like Tom Bryce. All right, listen carefully. All right, you, Alec Willis, had the audacity of calling the Philadelphia-Boston series the varsity game and the Knicks-Heat series the JV game. Do the Heat look like a JV team to you? Because they're going at the varsity team and they're kicking your butt, all right? And they're talking trash and they're in your face, right? And they're out executing you.
Literally got the Celtics face side. Did you see that?
Oh, Jimmy Butler got right in Grant Williams' face and basically did not back down. And we know Jimmy Butler. I'll get to him in a second. But let me get back to Alec Willis. You called that matchup a JV matchup. Well, guess what? Right now, it looks like the varsity matchup, and the Celtics look like the JV team right now. Especially when it comes to that conversation. I know Alec will have to agree with me on this one, especially when it comes to coaching. Now, I am a JV coach, and I know that my abilities are pretty good, or at least I believe in my abilities, to the fact where I could probably do better than some varsity coaches, all right? And that's how I feel.
I would respectfully agree with that. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
What I'm saying is, when it comes to coaching right now, Eric Spoelstra is a varsity coach, and Joe Mazzulla, I don't even know if I could put him as JV. I could put him as a freshman coach right now. Ooh. I mean, he is not ready for this, and he is a problem with the Boston Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, okay? And I like Joe Mazzulla. I think he's actually going to become
a good story. It's a good story. He got into a tough spot. Yeah. So what happened in the offseason. I agree.
I like him, but he's not ready for this moment. He's not. He's not. He's not. The guy they had last year. I have a lot of respect for too. He did a great job. I just think Mazzulla is getting very much outcoached when it comes to late game execution. Eric Spoelstra's coming through and making sure that
double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. What kind of performance was that in the last 9 minutes of the game?
Yeah. And listen, this is the thing that again, as a coach, you have to make adjustments. You saw Miami making Jason Tatum go through double teams to score in the late game. What did the Celtics do against Jimmy Butler? They played him one-on-one. What did Jimmy Butler do? Just cook him over and over again, which is exactly what he's going to do. And he's almost like rubbing it in, like, smiling at the bench and waving and doing the too small sign. I mean, when are you going to make an adjustment to double team this man who's been dominating the playoffs? I mean, Joe Mazzulla, there's a sample size here of what Jimmy Butler and Miami Heat have been doing. You also know, as a Celtics assistant, that this is a team that's been coming at you every year. Last year, you played them in the Eastern Conference Finals. 2 years ago, you played them in the bubble, right? This is not just a Miami Heat team that you're going to have to, rely on talent to beat them. You need to be better strategically, I should say, right? You should be more prepared, right? And the Celtics are just getting absolutely brutally embarrassed when it comes to preparation, when it comes to
I think to lose
adjustments.
2 games in your home court, especially tonight.
Yeah,
the way
they are getting beat there. And you look at the assertiveness of the teams, by the way. I'm not saying the Celtics aren't playing hard. Obviously, you're playing hard in the playoffs, okay? But you could just see that dog that Jimmy Butler talks about in the Miami Heat. Between him, who's obviously dominating the playoffs, and he's coming through in the clutch. Bam Adebayo, this guy has been
We
fantastic.
talked about him last week, about he was the X factor we thought in the sixth
I mean,
game
you saw
against the Knicks.
late game, he just outmuscles Al Horford for a rebound and gets a dunk, a big, huge dunk to go up 5. And then let me call it, I called him this in the Knicks series, Stephen Vincent, all right? Stephen Vincent, all right? This guy all of a sudden is absolutely done. And today was a big example for Gabe Vincent, because he came through in the biggest moment. He made that big shot when they were up 2. All right, yep, Jimmy Butler, you're right. Okay, and Justin's corrected me on that one, so you're right. Because it is right. Gabe Vincent made that big shot to go up 4. Gabe Vincent made the 2 free throws to go up 4 after the Celtics had scored after that. That is a guy who was undrafted, who they have multiple. Duncan Robinson comes in today after sitting the bench all season.
About him going back in the bubble.
He sits on the bench all season, though, has a horrible year, and shows up in the Eastern Conference Finals Game 2 and drops 15 points to help them win tonight. I mean, the Miami.
Max Strus as well.
Yes, I could go down the list. Look at other guys like you could go farther down. Kevin Love, for God's sake, I mean, comes in the game.
Kevin Love, you know what? He's had some big moments for them in these series.
I mean,
here.
everybody.
He produced.
I mean, Kevin Love has killed both the Knicks and the Bucks in both series with those long baseball passes.
Yes.
Out in transition and easy Heat buckets.
Yes.
How about Kyle Lowry? I mean, he's had some big moments in these postseason.
Those two guys, by the way, they are champions. They've won before. Okay. And, both of those guys, didn't have the greatest regular season. I mean, Lowry was hurt a lot.
They didn't need
Kevin
to.
Love,
They weren't. Yes, but they weren't expected to put up the back of their basketball card. They were supposed to come in here, provide leadership, play their roles, and these guys who probably look like this might be their last shot in the ring.
And that coupled with the coach that is Eric Spoelstra has led to this combination. And I understand that Anthony's 100% right. But and I know that a change had to be made because of what happened off the court, but you could tell the Celtics miss Ime Udoka.
Yes.
Ime Udoka last
postseason, you have to not
huge
disagree
for them with the coaching advantage, because it was a seamless transition from Brad Stevens, who was a tremendous head coach. And Brad goes to the front office, and now you see Udoka take over. They look just the same, and now with Joe Mazzulla, they don't, and that's the clear X factor in the series.
Yeah. And I just want to add at least another player who deserves a lot of credit too. He had a really good series against the Knicks, and he's making a big impact as well, and that's Caleb Martin. Okay, Caleb Martin.
That was a guy that was mentioned tonight during the post game. Yep, absolutely.
I mean, he's been huge for them. I mean, his statistics don't jump off the wall, but his energy, he's guarding the best players on the Celtics every possession, right? When he's in there, he's getting loose balls. He's a guy who you could tell follows a leader like Jimmy Butler and plays tough and physical, right? And again, leader in Jimmy Butler. I'm also questioning the leadership on the Celtics right now, all right? Because, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are 2 great players, but they're also very humble. Okay, right now, Justin mentions Ime Udoka. Well, Ime Udoka is a very accountable type of coach. He was very hard on the players. He was like Mazzulla has a different way, but sometimes when coaches have different styles, right? You need players to step up as leaders too. And I think right now, the
Al Horford's a veteran. He's been around a long, long time.
Yeah, but Al Horford fits into what Brad is saying. One of those guys that, is he a guy that's going to take the bull by the horn? Jimmy Butler, maybe statistically, like in the regular season, isn't the top 2 or 3 player, but what we've seen these last
and that's the difference right there. Right. And even like Brad said, the leadership of Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love, even though we know that they're not going to put up big stats, but it's the veteran presence, and then you have the veteran presence of Jimmy Butler plus the superstar that is Jimmy Butler.
In the postseason, that's my point. If you look at these last 4 postseasons,
that's another thing too. To your point, Tom, right? This is where we get tricked about the Miami Heat because Jimmy Butler in the regular season is just a good player, right?
Yeah.
But what we always forget, because the Miami Heat, they're not that team that's like winning a bunch of games in a row. They're kind of just a team that methodically wins a few games.
Through the play-in. That's the only reason they're here. They got through in the play, and they had to win one game on the road.
Right, but
to make
this is who they are, though. Like they do their job. They do enough in the regular season, but then when the postseason comes, they're a whole different animal, right?
You see that sometimes in sports. Josh Beckett, right, was a good pitcher, right, but in the postseason, I mean, he transformed. We talk about Mad Bum, Bumgartner had a good career. But in the postseason, he was something else. And Jimmy Butler, now I think he's a little bit better in the back of his card compared to those players. But in the postseason, he transforms. Yes. Kawhi Leonard, another example. Kawhi Leonard, I mean, look at what he did with the Spurs and the Raptors. Regular season, very good player. But in the postseason, he just became something else.
Absolutely. And this is the hardest thing, too, for me to say. And I know that, I love Nikola Jokic and what he's doing and how amazing he's been, okay? But even Nikola Jokic being in the conversation, Tom, Jimmy Butler is the best player in the playoffs right now. He is. He's the most. He's
not the best player overall, but in the postseason,
right,
he won one clutch player.
Right now, he's the best player. And, yes, he's a guy that you want on your team in the postseason because he could dominate, and you just see it. He just comes up clutch, and it's not just offensively too. He'll guard the best player.
Listen, there's something about him, and he's got that grit. And I think we could see why Miami might advance. But before I get to closing thoughts here and read a bunch of comments, I have to ask you, conversely, very quickly, in the Western Conference. So is this the moment? I know Justin might hate what I'm about to say. Is this the moment that the Denver Nuggets make their first ever appearance in the NBA Finals?
Yes. Yes. I do think that the Denver Nuggets are going to advance. I do think the Lakers, the series is not over. Like, people are saying it's over. It's not over. Like,
I think the Lakers are going to win tomorrow. Today,
I think the Lakers are going to win Game 3. I agree. And I think they could win Game 4. But I just think that, the inconsistencies of Anthony Davis, the inconsistencies of D'Angelo Russell, okay, and other guys on the team, and LeBron James also being hampered by this foot injury, who, I know he'll still be great, and I'm not doubting that, but that'll definitely hinder his play at times. I just think the Lakers have a lot of, questionable things. Will Anthony Davis show up this game? Will he show up this game? Will D'Angelo Russell do this? Right? I think there's a lot of questions. With the Nuggets, what questions are you asking? Like, there's not a lot of questions. Nikola Jokic is putting up a triple-double. We know that. All right? Jamal Murray's showing up. Even when he had a bad first half in the last game, he showed up in the second half, and he really just played. Caldwell Pope, he's gonna just play hard and play his role. Porter Jr., he's gonna make shots, right? Aaron Gordon, even though he's not making shots, is gonna have an impact on the game with rebounding, defending, different things like that. Like Bruce Brown, the former Net, has had a huge impact on this team. I know Justin doesn't want to hear that, right? But he's had a huge impact on this team. Christian Brown coming off the bench, the rookie from Kansas, another guy who has an impact off the bench. Jeff Green, the old man, right, comes off that bench, and you know what you're getting from him.
That tells you? That tells you that Denver is winning by their bench and those veterans like Miami, right? Yeah. We spoke about Miami with Lowry and Love, and they're maybe not the same exact.
There is one thing I do worry about. And ultimately, I do think the Nuggets win the series. But I'll be honest with you, I still think this bad boy's going 7. I really do. Unlike the Celtics, I don't think the Lakers are necessarily in trouble being down 0-2.
Yeah, because you win the first game at home. Yeah,
playing
your games in LA, and I think I actually think they'll tie the series. I think it'll be 2-2 after Game 4.
The Lakers have been very good at home.
The Lakers have played. The Lakers, other than the first half of Game 1, have not really played poor basketball. Yeah, they kind of faded. They faded a little bit in the fourth quarter the other night, but I think ultimately, what concerns me about Denver is I still don't fully trust anybody other than Jokic. And I could see them going cold from outside. If they go cold from outside, the Lakers are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA.
And that's what did the Knicks in against Miami. They went cold from three.
And I think if you're the Lakers, you can hang your hat on game planning ways to kind of, you're not going to stop Jokic or really even slow him down, but trying to negate him as much as possible and make the other guys shoot threes. I think that's where they could gain an advantage. And the one thing I did like is the switch and having Hachimura on Jokic clearly led him to be a little bit more ineffective from the field in game number 2, as opposed to just having straight up Anthony Davis on Jokic. The matchup with Hachimura favors the Lakers a little bit. Obviously, you're not going to slow down his great ball handling and his vision with the passing, and his rebounding ability is off the charts. I mean, it's as good as anybody in the league. And he could have arguably been the MVP for the 3rd straight year. But with that being said, I still think you're going to get a big performance from the Lakers these next couple games.
All right, well, we'll certainly see what happens. Obviously, Lakers definitely pressure is on them. Pressure's on the Celtics, but they're going to Miami. Miami has been great at home in these playoffs, so we'll have to see if we get some extended basketball. Obviously, Miami does look like they could be on the verge of history. And conversely, Denver looks like they're on the verge of history for a franchise. Again, it's never been to the NBA Finals. Kind of a interesting quirk there. That's what Anthony Steele off the air, I guess, earlier today, Brad actually wanted me to ask, and I think you gave the same answer that Anthony Steele, the real deal, gave. But before I get to closing thoughts here, let me read up more of these comments. Anthony Finkel, again, it says Spoelstra, the second best coach in the league behind Popovich. The Miami system works. They can plug in anybody and still make the playoffs. I'm thinking I need a Butler. You know what? He ain't wrong on pretty much everything he said there. Hemi Butler, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'll go with it once. I met Spoelstra once. I don't remember him meeting Spoelstra in Rome. I don't know this story. He's very tall with his wife. Well, his wife was one of the cheerleaders there for the Heat. Let me just say, she's definitely attractive. I'm going to try to be as kind as I can and polite as I can.
Really tall, though? I don't know about that. I don't know if he's really tall.
Well, Anthony Finkel's got to be 6'2". So, yeah, I don't think Spoelstra's that tall. Like, I mean, I think you might be taller than him. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember Spoelstra being like 6'10". I mean, our buddy Steve Saperstein's like 6'5". He's tall. I mean, I would say Steve's tall. I mean, you're tall, Brad. I mean, Anthony Finkel's relatively tall. I mean, so I don't think Spoelstra's like 7 foot, unless I'm missing something.
Spoelstra's listed as 6'2".
Yeah, there you go. So they're the same height. I don't know, Anthony Finkel. I don't think you met Eric Spoelstra then. You did not meet him in Rome. But yes, his wife is attractive. That's why he's got 4 kids. All he does is go into the off season and he's having kids. And I get the point. I agree with you. The Heat out tough teams. They're bullies. I love it. They beat up on the Knicks. So they did beat up on the Knicks. I agree with you on that. Jimmy Butler and the Brute got that dog in them. Yeah, they do have that as my uncle would say famously, that dog-eat-dog mentality. That dog-eat-dog mentality. And that was what was it? Who was saying dog-eat-dog? Was it Ted Nugent? I think Ted Nugent was dog-eat-dog, right? Ted Nugent was dog-eat-dog. Nobody knows that song. Maybe some of these guys know it. That's an old song. LeBron looks cooked. He can barely win. He can't impose his will on teams anymore. Well, I mean, I don't know how much longer it's going to be, but this could be maybe his best shot. We'll have to see on one more championship. Anthony Davis, a.k.a. Mr. Glass. Well, we'll have to see. Look, Lakers have some questions. I'm going to say maybe they turn it around here. He says he claims he met him at St. Peter's Basilica. Okay, but he's not massively tall because you're like 6'2". I mean, so that means like the same height. So it wasn't like he was 7 foot. I agree with you. Yeah, his wife's pretty. All right, so you got half of it, right? Yeah. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But you know what? We've spoke a lot on Sportzwire Radio. Spoke about the NHL, even spoke about Mets and Yankees. Seem like they're back on track. Spoke about the NBA. Had some fun, some comments in between. A lot of people came in here. A rather quiet John Gonzalez tonight. Maybe that's because he does want Bad Bunny and Brad to step in the ring. I don't know, but certainly all good stuff there. But let me go to closing thoughts here. I'm going with Rob Maraska first. Rob, I want to give you the floor here. Want to give you anything else that you want to say, you can do it as well. Any social medias you want to plug and anything else on the Mets, you're welcome to say. And also more details on this contest one more time. Fire away and the floor is yours.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick mention about the passing of NFL Hall of Famer Jim Brown.
Well, we can talk about that for a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. I mean,
87, right?
Yeah, 87 years old, Cleveland Browns from 1957 to 1965. He was in the Pro Bowl. He was a Pro Bowler every year.
Wow.
He brought the team to the 3 championship games, won the title in 1964, MVP 3 times, and he had 12,312 yards for his career rushing. So we just had to bring that up. I mean, he's
9 seasons, 12,000 yards. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was the last championship Cleveland had won up until the Cavaliers won it. I think right in 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right? That
I think you're correct on that. Yes.
Yeah, because the Indians' last World Series was 48, so it was around before the Cavaliers.
The Guardians, yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up. One of the greats, definitely.
Yeah, he was a big civil rights pioneer. I think for a long time he held the NFL rushing record. Right, he held that up until Walter Payton broke the record. Then it was Emmitt Smith, I think. Right, then I think that broke it.
Yep.
I mean, so he held that.
What's amazing to me about Jim Brown is the what could have been, because he was a guy who retired on top. Right.
Yep.
We never saw him go downhill because he retired at 30, after 9 seasons, and who knows how many more yards he could have racked up, almost, in a more modern sense of what Barry Sanders was. Now, Jim Brown, you could still, to this day.
Well, what did Barry Sanders play? 10 years and Brown played 9?
Something like that. And both, I think, retired around 30, 31. And, but with Brown, you could still to this day say he's the greatest. You could still say he's the greatest running back of all time.
No, he's definitely up there in the discussion. I mean, you think about Anthony Finkel's going on about him frozen. No, the guys are hearing me right now. You might be on your phone, but I mean, listen, he plays 9 years and averages, and that was a 14-game NFL season, right? He did those numbers.
Yes.
So if you think about it, he would have had the 2 extra games times 9. I mean, do the math. He might have still had the NFL rushing record to this day. So I mean, it shows you, but probably his biggest accomplishments would have to be off the field. I think when it came to everything he accomplished, obviously civil rights, and then I think also Rob Vita Blue had passed away. I think right after we got off the air last week. Vita Blue. I heard you and Patrick talk about Vita Blue. Vita Blue was a guy that won, 209 games you guys mentioned, and he had that one great season. And then the rest of his career was kind of like an okay career, but today, I think, Chris, you spoke about he probably would have been a Hall of Famer, but he was another guy. 74, I think he was when he passed away. So terrible deaths there. Vita Blue and Jim Brown. Yeah, Vita Blue I don't think was quite a Hall of Famer, but I think if you looked at the back of his baseball card, he had that one impressive season and then kind of like
Cy Young and MVP, right?
Yep. What was like 24-3 or something like that. And he had like an ERA that was like kind of like a Doc Gooden season. I mean, I guess almost in a way kind of a similar to career that with like Doc Gooden, maybe different reasons they were similar in terms of the wins, the strikeouts, the compiling of stats, but for different reasons they're similar. But yeah, 74, and then Jim Brown, just horrific news, and obviously thoughts and prayers to all the Cleveland sports fans. And also Jim Brown, by the way, was from New York. He was a Syracuse University graduate there. Speaks to what
our friend Manhattan High School.
Yep. Yeah,
he went to Manhattan High School, so he's from Long Island.
The local guy, everybody, John Gonzalez's point months back about Syracuse being a good football program. Jim Brown came from Syracuse, so that shows you right there. So obviously, Mr. Gonzalez, if you're out there, did want to give you a little buzz. I want to thank you also for sharing the show earlier today with Mr. Anthony Steele, and go follow the Sports Authorities group at the Sports Authorities. So anything else, Rob, before I move on to Chris, some closing thoughts as we kind of wrapped on Jim Brown for a second?
Yeah, real quick, the contest, I will name the winner next week for my contest, so you could check it out.
Maybe he was looking at Eric Spoelstra's wife. I don't know.
And one card that definitely will not be in the winning pack will be the Ed Crane pool card because I'm saving that for John Gonzalez. So
Okay, Ed Kranepool still holds the for whatever reason New York Mets record for seasons played. I mean, Ed Kranepool, the first draft pick, came up with the Mets at 17. Great stuff there, Rob. Thank you for that. Definitely thank you for the history lesson when it came to the Ed Kranepool. Everybody follow Rob Maraska at Maraska. John would like to add one more thing on Jim Brown. Best running back ever, O.J. Simpson, not even close. Now, O.J. Simpson played about the same amount of years, right? Leave aside what happened later on, but O.J. Simpson was the first 2,000-yard rusher. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Well, he's definitely in the discussion right now. He played also in the 14-game only season, so I mean his stats are probably right up there. Listen, that's that's an interesting one. He's also yes, Ed Kranepool. Thank you, Rob. So yes, he's happy about that. Chris, want to give you the floor. Anything else you want to plug? Share. Say I have the Liftoff Jet show. I will gladly play that this weekend. I'm live a bunch of times, so I'll have time to play it. I also have your Talking Rival show, which I did, by the way. I cut out that little 2.5 minutes of dead air, so
Thank you.
cut that out.
Appreciate
So
that.
we made no problem. And anything else you want to plug, share, say, floor is yours, and fire away there, my friend.
Thank you, Tom. Great show, guys. Yeah, I just want to add a little bit to the Jim Brown story.
Yeah,
I heard something today on the radio. Donald Greco brought it up. He said that there was I don't want to say it's a rumor, but that Jim Brown was never tackled for a loss in his career.
Really?
Is that like I'd never heard that before, but
wow,
that just adds to this guy's legend that he was that amazing of a running back. Yeah, and like Justin said, he's one of those guys that you could still consider the greatest running back, to ever live. So to ever play.
Wow, I did not know that. That's really impressive.
Pretty amazing. I if that's true, that is unbelievable. And he was a 2-sport star too, right? Wasn't he a great lacrosse player as well?
Yes, I was going to say it's Syracuse. Yep.
Right. So just to add to that, yeah. One thing we know right now is the Yankees are back and the Mets are back. Okay, let's just accept it and move on. There's no more negativity. There's only confidence.
I think that's a shot at Brad Rice on the Mets
season.
part.
Yeah, we're back. We're both back.
I think the Yankees have shown they're back the last 2 weeks. I will say the Yankees.
Mets are too. The Mets are back. Don't worry, guys. The Mets are back.
All right.
It's a long season. Don't worry about it.
I agree it's a long season. I think what saves the Mets is then we ran off some of these teams in the National League are in a worse spot than the Mets are. And in the American League, I think the Yankees are in a very good spot. And before I get to Justin here, also, Jim Brown, 5.2 yards per carry for his career in the NFL. And he ends his last season, thanks to the crack staff for giving us this note, 1,544 yards, 17 touchdowns. Had the longest run of anybody in the league at 67 yards, 80 yards from scrimmage on a touchdown he scored on. That was in 1963. And yeah, he led the league in rushing 8 of his 9 years. I mean, that's like just unheard of numbers. And he only averaged for his career, just about 20 attempts a game. So think about it. If this guy would have had even more rushes, just think about what his career would have been. Even as a receiver, he had 262 receptions for 20 touchdowns. So he was really...
How did they only win 1 Super Bowl with him? Right? Or 1 championship, I should say.
NFL championship, yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, that's probably why he retired. He was probably like, you know what, I'll give up. And OJ, to be fair, his numbers are almost as identical as Jim Brown's. I mean, he had 1, 2, 3, 4 years. He led the league in rushing, 2 years in touchdowns, and he had 2,003 yards, 1973, 1817 and 1975, 1503 and 1976, and he was MVP also. He was runner-up also 1 year, OJ Simpson. He was also in the Pro Bowl. I guess they only had it twice. He was an AP first team 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So yeah, OJ's in there. I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, everybody can have
his
their
career went down right after I think he was 29. Those last 3 years, good. So
the last 2 years, the crack staff, I have it here. The last 2 years, he only had 1,000. The last 3 years, he had 557, 593, and 460. So his numbers. He dropped off, unfortunately, but he was definitely in the discussion, still averaged almost 5 yards a carry himself. So he's definitely, I want to give it up there. And before I get to Justin, John Gonzalez points out Ed Kranepool was a great pinch hitter. I didn't realize he was a great pinch hitter, but he hung on right for 18 years. So, I mean, he
was a great pinch hitter, definitely. Before Rusty Staub, he was the best pinch hitter the Mets had. So yes, he was.
Well, that's a good ones. They had, what was it? Who was the guy they had? Kurt Russell's nephew. It was what was his name? Matt Franco. Matt Franco was a good one.
Yep.
Had him. Lenny Harris. Can't forget.
Lenny.
Lenny Harris played for 50 years as a pinch hitter. I mean, they had him. Did the Mets have Manny Mota for like a second? Right? Did the Mets have him for like a very brief moment, maybe? Or am I missing something there? But they had some decent pinch hitters over the years. So that's good points there. And also for you, Brad, Brute saw your image on a Bud Light can. You look great. New Bud Light cans? Are you one of those tall boys they're serving at Barclays Center for the start of the Liberty season? That's what he's referring to? Maybe we'll find out, right?
Here we go. Here we go with these made-up stories. Where did you hear this one, John? I mean, what source did you get this from? But I'll have something to say in my closing thoughts to John Gonzalez. But let's go to Justin first.
All right, so Justin, I'm going to give you the floor because the Brute's chomping the bits. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, say, and the floor is yours, and fire away.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I mean, I have to be right now giddy about the Mets only because we're seeing the young kids produce. We see Beatty, see Alvarez home runs tonight. Obviously, with what Pete's doing is just incredible right now. 17 homers,
41 RBI. It's just
41 RBIs. And listen, the Mets better perform. With the Devils out, they got my full attention now. So it's time to pick up your game. There's a lot of the first month of the season I didn't get to see because of the playoffs and stuff, and still watching the other teams in the playoffs, but obviously not going to be a main focus as opposed to the Mets. But right now they're giving me a reason to suck me back in. That's what being a Met fan is,
Yeah.
They win a couple games, they suck you in, then they break your heart. But yeah, also want to pass my condolences on the whole Jim Brown thing. It's it's a giant loss for the NFL. It really is
for society, because what he did really for this country, he moved a lot of barriers. I think
for sure. There's a lot of people who remember Jim Brown for other than football, and there's so much. There's so many things.
I remember as a kid reading about him. I think it was in my social studies class in Brooklyn growing up, and it was about him off the field, not about this great athlete. I remember reading about him in civil rights. I'm almost certain.
Yeah, I mean, he was certainly an activist. We've seen Kareem Abdul-Jabbar be an activist as well. Post playing career. So those are guys that are larger than life, and Jim Brown lived for 87 years and was and he certainly lived life to the fullest. And it's a huge loss for the Browns organization, his family, the fans. It really is. And if you're listening to this or watching this and you really didn't want to go see how great he was, just go pick up a highlight pack, and you'll just see how great of a running back Jim Brown really was. So, you can follow me on my Twitter at JGNelly12, and talk to you next week.
Absolutely. And last thing before I get to the Brute Force, the Mets have Gary Sanchez. What could go wrong?
He's going to be the backup pitcher. Stop it.
Well, listen, people are feeling good right now, so we'll keep it that way. But obviously, John is here. I think he wants to hear it. Some people, I'm sure, at Instagram will hear it because people always like to hear these things on Instagram. So the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, you know the drill at this point. While we didn't save the best for last, I'd argue we probably saved the biggest for last here in your closing thoughts. Probably a lot to get into. I'm sure Liberty, they started the season tonight. Also talk about some of the stuff on the court. You want to recap that. Anything else on your mind? Certainly the fresh cut. Obviously, Sal the Barber, great job as always. And you know the drill at this point, the Brute Force. So I turn it over to you and fire away.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for another great week of the show. Thank you, Chris, Rob, Justin. I'll give an honorable shout out to my buddy Omen Black. All right, yes. Who definitely came on and supported. Shout out to Anthony Finkel. I hope to see soon at the Barclays Center. Yes. And, of course, a shout out to the tardy John Gonzalez, who decided to just show up during closing thoughts, which is basically.
He showed up at least. I mean, where was Joseph Bostrom tonight? I mean, we had, what's this guy, Carlos Otoro Chavez, who spams the comments. Where was he? So, you know what? he was here at least tonight, John Gonzalez. Some other guys who, I can't miss the show. Billy McInerney. Where was Billy McInerney? I mean, there's a lot of people you could say, hey, where were they tonight,
Yeah, so thank you, and I'm not answering that question at this moment. But what I will talk about, first of all, because I definitely need to do this, I want to give a shout-out tonight to one of my best friends. His name is Matt Chasen. He just got engaged this past weekend to his girlfriend. So I am very happy for him. Want to make sure I give him a shout-out.
And that makes two of your friends, because did you see a couple weeks ago, our old buddy Tom Flynn got engaged?
That's right. So two good friends getting engaged. So I want to congratulate Matt and, of course, Tom as well. It's crazy to see, but certainly I'm
thinking about Tom Flynn, and you were talking about him on the basketball court growing up, and now he's engaged to Sophie. It's who would have guessed?
Yeah, it's definitely crazy, but both of them have been with their girlfriends for a long time, and I'm just happy for them. And Matt, again, a very close friend of mine, a supporter of our show,
yes.
Always questioning me on my takes, always. He was very angry at me about my take on the New York Giants because he was a Giant fan. So he was not happy.
The Giants one. It's funny because I thought about him. I was like, you know what? When I posted that clip yesterday, I was kind of thinking about somebody out there is gonna be mad at you on that take.
Yeah, a lot of people actually put in their vote, and the majority actually did put the Giants around 8 or 9 wins. But there were a lot of them that also said 10+, which I was rolling my eyes like, what? Like, what are you talking about? But listen, we all know me and Justin agreed, and most of us agreed at 6 or 7.
Yeah. I think I had 8. I think I was 8, like 8 and 9 was my kind of thought. I think I'm good with that.
Matt's not happy with me on that one, but it's okay. I'm happy for him and getting engaged, and I want to make sure I give him a shout out with that. I definitely also wanted to give a shout out because you guys see it. I'm repping it today. All right, for the New York Liberty. All right, I know they lost tonight. I know they started off the season 0-1. Okay, but at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, this is a team that's still trying to get the pieces put together. They have a lot of new pieces, a lot of great players that are trying to gel and bond. So I think this is going to be really exciting. They have their first home game against the Indiana Fever this Sunday. I expect them to bounce back. But the Washington Mystics are a good quality team right now who have played together. So I think, they lost tonight, but I think they'll bounce back on Sunday. And then next Saturday, I will be at the Liberty game with my family, as well as 2 people who we know on this show, Tom Bryce, besides my parents and my sister. Aunt Hillary and Uncle Rob will be there because they're going to be coming in from California. So I'm excited for that. And also, I believe I sent it to Mr. Anthony Finkel. I hope he's listening. But I sent him the tickets that I want to buy. So I'm hoping Anthony Finkel will also be there, and anyone else that wants to.
I think I can't confirm I'm going to get there on time, but there's a possibility I might be able to sneak into the building. But
all right. I'm listening. Anybody who wants to come support the Liberty, all right, we're going to be there.
We got to go to evening games going forward because 1 o'clock is usually like way early for me. But
it is an early start, but it is a weekend, and it's one of my only weekends off from coaching. So I want to make sure I get there to the Barclays Center for a good game against Connecticut. And again, these Liberty are, I said it, they're the best team in New York right now. They got all these superstars, all this talent. Let's just
whoa. They're not the best team in New York. Relax.
No. I am confident. You told me to be confident. You told me to be confident, all right?
Well, they're not the best team in New York.
And who would you have as the best team in New York?
I'll rephrase that. They're going to be the best team in New York.
Possibly.
Who would you who do you have as the best team at the moment in New York?
Not a team that's 0-1, so no.
Okay.
Again,
I don't want to say who's better than, the Yankees or the Mets right now, but, because we can't say a hockey team or a basketball team because they're all not playing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say Yankees won. Maybe Yankees won.
Well, again, at the moment, I'll give it to Chris. At the moment, they got to prove it. You're right. But they're going to be the best team because I think they're the team in New York that has the biggest potential of winning a championship very soon. I think that they're right there. They have the talent. They have the superstars. Exactly. Right there. Anthony Finkel, 100% right. They will be the first team to win a championship in New York in a while.
Technically, in the MLS we were in a championship. Did we win a championship in the MLS?
Yeah, the NYCFC won. That's true. Yep, that's true. And then NYCFC is going to be moving next door to the Mets soon, so they will be over there.
Brought it up.
Yeah. So, we'll see. But listen, I'm really excited for the Liberty season. I'm excited to be there next weekend. So I definitely wanted to bring that up for sure. Like I said, anybody want to come and support the Liberty with us, come to the game. We'll see you there. John Gonzalez, I want to see you there this season, all right?
Well, he said you gave the kiss of death, that confidence.
Oh, man.
No, listen, they'll be fine. Listen, they'll be fine. They're too good to be messed up by my confidence issues, all right, that I've
Let's
had.
hope so. You know what? Let's hope so. Let's hope that they have the season that the fan base would like.
So, again, I'm excited for them. I am still cautiously optimistic on the Mets. Chris is trying to push me to get back on the confidence train. Not yet. All right, I still need to see more. Chris, they play the Colorado Rockies next weekend. I'll be curious to see if they'll win that series. I don't think they will because they can't beat bad teams. But we'll see. Hopefully they can prove me wrong. All right.
Even the Cubs series is going to be tough. Cubs are playing well right now. Cubs are above 500.
Cubs series will be an interesting one too. But we'll see what happens. But ultimately, there's a lot going on with the Mets and all our teams. I'll be on the court this weekend with Level Up once again. I actually saw one of our good friends tonight who got a nice 2-point comeback win, and that's Billy Heenan, who was on
Billy Heenan. Was he trying to convince you to be a Bengals fan or what?
No, because listen, he knows I'm a Jet fan, and I'm excited to be a Jet fan right now. But listen, Billy Heenan got a nice comeback win by 2. He was sweating a lot. He had a close game. He was sweating, but
when Billy sweats, you know that there's definitely going through a lot of water. Hence the size of Billy.
Yeah. But he got the job done. I love Billy. I love Coach Gaudiezzo.
Billy's been good with us. I like Coach Heenan.
Yeah, and I like Coach Gaudiezzo, and I hope he comes back on soon. I'm looking forward.
We'll get him back. I'm telling you, they'll come back. You have the last couple of weeks have been very difficult, but now schedule's easing up a bit, so we'll be able to resume these segments. So
looking forward to it all. Certainly, hopefully a great week with Level Up. Like I said, I'm already off to a 2-0 start tonight. So certainly. Certainly, I have nothing to say to that. Certainly, I can't wait for another great edition of the show next week, Tom. And I'm looking forward to a great weekend, and hopefully the weather warms up because it was pretty chilly yesterday.
Oh, my God, it was terrible outside. And to be fair, I mean, we had one of our shows before I get to Anthony Finkel, before we say goodbye, the mayor of Canton down in actually Cleveland. It was in the 30s in Cleveland yesterday. I mean, this is like, what's going on here? It's like it was even today was okay, but it's like we should be 80s. Let's be 70s now, 80s. It's time. This is ridiculous. This is New York weather's just. I don't know. But let's hope for some warmer weather. I think next week it's supposed to be nice. I think tomorrow, as Justin pointed out today, stinks. But I think after that we're going to finally hit close to the 70s. So we'll definitely see. Anthony Finkel says great show tonight. Miss you boys. Looking forward to rock out next week. Yeah, you'll probably. I'm assuming eventually running into me at some point in the building. So we'll figure that out.
And to add on top of that, I keep forgetting, but next weekend is Anthony Finkel's birthday. So that is very important as well. Anthony Finkel's a big supporter of our show. So It'll be a good show. And next week, just say happy birthday to him. And then, I hope to see him at the Liberty game on his birthday. Hopefully they can come with a win.
When am I opening the pool? I got little kids living in the house now. You know the answer. So, unfortunately, there really is no more opening the pool these days. But I will tell you that you have a big pool. You're the guy that lives in Florida with the big house who's got the big friends living there. So, we should be coming over your house, Anthony Finkel, because you're the guy that's the homeowner in his 30s. And there's a lot of people here, I'm sure, that would love to come over to your house in Cape Coral, Florida, because you don't have any kids there. You don't have anybody that's you have to answer to. So I'm sure the bigger answer should be, when are you opening the pool at your house? Because you actually have 2 pools to open. One in Ditmas Park. You have a big yard there, right off the dead end by the Q train. And then you have one in Florida. So I think the bigger question is, when are you having the Sportswire guys at your house there? And I think John Gonzalez kind of agrees. So the legendary DPH King. But no, seriously, happy birthday, Anthony Finkel. I definitely look forward to seeing you next weekend. Definitely look forward to seeing some of the guys. I also want to give a happy birthday from the state of California Anastasia Riznia. Want to wish her a happy birthday. I know a lot of people out there. Also, J.R. Wind. J.R. Wind's one of our big fans over from Wrestling Championship Entertainment, had a birthday. So I want to wish you all a happy birthday. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your favorite sports teams and much, much more. And tonight, we were joined here by Chris Bizet of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals. Justin Gianelli, who is the Let's Go Mets fan, as you can see here from the Baseball Banter Show. Rob Maraska, contest guy, and of course the legendary SJLI Golden Eagle, 27th all-time in school history and rebounds. Near the top of the list all-time in block shots. He's with the Level Up Basketball Organization, Long Island Nets. He's also the head coach of our boys' JV basketball team over at Plainview JFK High School. That is the brute force Brad Weiss. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I'm with John Gonzalez on this one here. Fink, I'm crashing your house with Randy. Exactly. That's the point here. Anthony Fink was the guy that's got like the house you see on TV. He's the one you want to go over with. My house at this point, you don't want to go. It's like you don't want to come here. This is the last place you want to come. Anthony Finkel's got 2 houses. He could have like WrestleMania 2, where they had it in Los Angeles, they had it in Chicago, they had it in all these other places. Anthony Finkel, we could have like 2 parties simultaneously. He's living the high life. He's the business owner. He's the property owner. Me, listen, I'm just lucky I have a place basically to put a microphone in front of. So thank you, Anthony Finkel, though, for your kind words, and we look forward to celebrating your birthday. There she is, California Chargers fan and all. Anastasia, I believe I got it right. Riznia. Is it Riznia? Riznia. I'm still pronouncing that correctly. She's from California. Big fans of ours. We'll definitely talk more Chargers for her soon. Thank you, everybody, here for tuning in on Sportswire Radio. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I'll be back here today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. British Standard Time, with the Juggernaut, John Allen's, ahead of his match next weekend, Bank Holiday, for the new British Promotions title. So stay tuned for that on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And also, I can't get off the air here because people want to talk. I'm borrowing towels from the Brew Force to hit Fink's pool. I don't think the towels from the hotel in Florida would be big enough for Anthony Finkel's house. You need bigger towels than that because he's got a big, spacious pool. He's not only got a big, spacious pool in Brooklyn, he's got one in Florida because I've seen them both. So definitely make sure you get those towels, but maybe get 2 towels. So maybe John needs to steal 2 towels you're holding. One for yourself and one is the, I guess, extra supply. But you know what? We're out of here, out of time. Thank you, everybody, here for tuning in. If you're on sportnary.com/player, you go back to your regularly scheduled programming. And again, good night.